What's up, Weirdo Swarm, and welcome back to another episode of Podagon Infinity. This is, of course, the podcast that opens the door to all things King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and my name is Joe.
And my name is Spencer. Joe, it feels like long time no see here on the pod.
I know, right? Seriously, yeah, it's been a little bit. It feels like it's been a while since we've done an episode together, and that is because, of course, if you missed it or haven't heard, last time on the show, Spencer did a solo episode because I was away on a little trip and just couldn't make the schedule work to get on a call or anything like that and record. So Spencer took the reins, so I appreciate you doing that so we could still have get a show out there for the good people that are enjoying our program. And in fact, you actually did a fun one. You didn't do an album discussion or anything like that without me because that's sort of our bread and butter, and I'd be a little upset and left out if you did that. But you did a very fun hypothetical, now that's what I call Giz, hypothetical Giz greatest hits album, where you took suggestions from listeners and different people on social media, as well as just some of your own personal input of stuff you felt should be on there. And it was really goofy and really fun, and I highly recommend everyone check it out if you haven't heard it already. It was really cool, and I especially loved the little gag you did, the commercial gag towards the beginning of the episode. I had no idea what your plan was with this and that you were going to do that, and I think it turned out great, so everybody should definitely check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I was really happy that I got the idea that I did and just kind of took it and ran with it.
Yeah.
As I said in the episode, it's just having worked in the industry that I did for a decade, it was something that kind of had to happen. Like, that part of my brain was itching to kind of let that creative side out. And so yeah, once again, if you haven't checked that last episode out, we do encourage you to do so. In the meantime, Joe, this is usually the part where we read any listener messages or comments or anything. Didn't really get a whole lot other than people giving a couple of brief, kind of quick hit reactions to omissions from that.
Right.
Now that's what I call Giz compilation. Suffice to say, one person was very upset that Dripping Tap didn't get voted in. But to be fair, that was one that would have eaten up a lot of time.
That's true.
When we were trying to keep it under a certain time threshold.
Right, because your original plan was to keep it under the limit for what a 2 CD set could contain.
2 hours, 40 minutes.
And you still ended up going over, right? You were about around 3 hours total?
It was just under 3 hours. It was like 2:56 in the end. So I kind of reestablished the rule. Let's keep it under 3 hours.
Sure, yeah. Let's be realistic. This is the Giz we're talking about here. You'll have to include a third disc that just has like 2 songs on it or something just for that extra space. Before we get into the topic of today's episode, I just wanted to say in general, I feel like so far this year, we haven't done the best job of sticking to our usual bi-weekly release schedule. We've had a couple extra week gaps between episodes. For whatever reason, I've had multiple little extended weekend trips and just things going on. So we've been a little slow, a little less productive this year. So I appreciate everyone sticking with us. Those of you who are regular listeners that look forward to the show coming out, we appreciate your support and listenership. And I apologize for any inconvenience, but from here on out, we're going to try our best. I don't have any trips planned for a while, not until the summer. So I should be good to go to stick to our regular schedule and keep things going here. So that's all I have to say about that. But how about the topic of today's episode, Spencer? You want to give a little intro to what we're doing today?
Yeah, man. 12 Bar Bruise. Actually, the last album discussion episode we did was Willoughby's Beach, which feels like it was a long time ago. And actually, looking back, that was literally over 2 months ago.
Oh my God. Was that the first one of the year?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. See,
I don't
that
was back in January.
I lose track of everything without looking directly at our release history and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I got to correct you a little bit. EP discussion on that
EP.
one. Not technically an album. 12 Bar Bruise is the first album.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're talking about today. It felt like a natural place to go after discussing their early work last time, because this album basically contains a lot of that same kind of sound and style that we heard on their first release. There's a lot of similarities to it, and very much the same youthful, chaotic energy. It's punky, it's fast, it's dirty and noisy, so it just feels right to go right into this one. And I have no idea where we'll go next after this. We have a couple albums left to discuss. No matter what, it's going to be one that's very different than this, so we're going to just get this one out of the way and be done with their very early work here.
Yeah, so painting with broad strokes for now, I will say that even though there are several songs on this album that really do feel like they would be at home next to most of Willoughby's Beach as far as the noise and the chaos and the punky energy and the speed of everything, they take some pretty big swings elsewhere on this album. They take some creative gambles, and I will say some of them don't really pay off, in my opinion. Others absolutely do. We'll obviously get into which ones, and maybe we agree or disagree on some of them as we go through the track by track. But make no mistake, they are showing some growth and some ability to tinker and mess around with production and writing and ideas, all sorts of things. This is really not Willoughby's Beach Part 2 Electric Boogaloo.
No, yeah, definitely not. By the way, this album was released on August 7th, 2012. And yeah, as you said, there's a little bit of growth here, a little bit of more variety, a little bit of uniqueness compared to Willoughby's, even though it's similar in a lot of ways. It's also different and fresh in a lot of other ways. And this album represents quite a few firsts for the band. This was, of course, as we said, the first official album by Giz. And this was also the first time having Jason Galea do the album cover. And of course, he would go on to create the album artwork for every single following King Gizzard album cover up to this day. And I sure hope he never stops. He is a genius. He is a madman. I love his artwork so much. And he doesn't have one particular style either. He can do so much. It's just amazing. Like this 12 Bar Bruise album cover looks nothing like any of their other album covers, and he could just do it all. So Jason is he's the best. He's the GOAT. And, he's really is a part of the band at this point. Like, they would not be the same without him. His visual style is so much part of their overall character. And, we mentioned before the first Willoughby's Beach cover was done by someone else, so we talked about that a bit on that episode. But yeah, it's been Jason ever since, so that was a big deal for his first gig with the band here doing the album artwork. Another first for this album is its release brought about the founding of Flightless Records, which would be their label for about a decade or so until eventually Eric's departure from the band. He was sort of the head of the label and managed everything on the business end of that. And, after Eric's departure, they released a few records under just the KGLW. It was just like the record name. And then, of course, now we have P-Doom. And that was first brought about when Flight B741 came out. That was the first record under that name. And that seems to be what it's going to be from here on out. But yeah, that's just a couple of the firsts that this album brought about. It was a major point in the band's history.
As would be the case for most, if not all, albums to follow in the discography, Stu kind of gives a spiel explaining the background of the band's experiences and interactions and thoughts behind the music on this album. And after a little introductory part of this spiel, I want to pick up partway through what Stu wrote as the synopsis. He says, "I think we just kind of wanted to make it weird and loud and kind of dumb. Between 19 and 23 years old, nervous and confused, wide-eyed, living off goon bags, which is cheap wine in a box. Don't get any other ideas. Okay. 2025 children, 2026 children. Ciggies, Doritos, and the dole, which I guess is Australian slang for like government assistance, or what we might know here as welfare, or food stamps or whatever. Paul Mayberry engineered and really guided us through this one. He let me take control of the faders and experiment with his seemingly endless array of recording equipment. I pretended I knew what I was doing. Anyway, he pulled it all together. I shudder to think what it would have sounded like without his road-hardened wisdom." And then, Joe, you touched on some of the firsts that Stu goes on to mention in this spiel, but right at the very end, Stu kind of reflects on, formative years. I think that was the time of your life where you start using your brain for the first time in general. Lizard brain. Who am I? Who was me? Enjoy. Love, Stu. That's almost like a foreshadowing to Murder of the Universe. Yeah. Am I you? Or are you me?
Are you me?
Yeah, something like that.
He has such a way with words, that Stu. I love his synopses, or like whatever you would call them, these little paragraphs that he writes in the liner notes of the albums. It's just such a fun read, just to get a look inside of his head and just inside of all the guys, where they were at the time, and the idea and behind the album and things they went through and the people that helped to make it happen is really cool. I love that stuff.
12 Bar Bruise also won a couple of accolades over the years. It won Best Independent Hard Rock, Heavy, or Punk Album of 2012. The band also won the inaugural Carlton Dry Global Music Grant worth $50,000, which was kind of an artist grant similar to what they do in Ireland. I guess they do in Australia too, like grants for artists to help them make content when they're earlier on and kind of give them that boost.
Yeah.
United States, take fucking note, please.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that for myself. Really? Make some music, really.
And also during the Flightless re-release in 2018, when the band re-released all their older content, this album hit number 14 on the ARIA albums chart. So that earlier work and a big boost from that Flightless re-release.
All right, so that is just some of the history and some of the background on the band's inaugural album, 12 Bar Bruise. Why don't you say we get into the track by track here, starting off with track number 1. This is Elbow.
Alrighty, so just as we said in the preamble to this track by track, punky and raw and energetic, Elbow kind of fits all the above in terms of description. This is your classic crazy yelling Stu vocal from the early years. His vocals are actually very distorted, and that's one difference I want to point out between 12 Bar Bruise and Willoughby's, despite the two being seen kind of as cut from the same cloth for the most part. I feel like the vocals are much more distorted on this album in a lot of places, and this is one where that is really the case. This song, though, was the second single released from the album, and it was one of the oldest tracks, recorded much earlier on than some of the others for this record. And all in all, it's just such a punky, energetic, like energy and volume turned up to 11, almost literally.
Yeah.
You got the Ramones like, hey, 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 in between all the actual lyrics, and the oh man, there's like the gang vocals and echoing, you want,
yeah, the call and response going on. Yeah.
They got it all going on, and that really helps make it clear that it's not just one guy up front hogging the limelight. Like, they're working together.
Yeah.
They're all kind of taking the reins to share.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, just you mentioned the A section. We talked about this a lot on Willoughby's, but there are all these vocalizations where it's just mouth sounds repeated as part of the melody in place of actual regular lyrics. There's a lot of that on this album, although not every track. On Willoughby's, it was like almost every song, if not all of them, if I'm remembering correctly. This album, it's not quite as much, but I think like maybe half the songs have some sort of thing like that going on. So still a lot of that. That's definitely another thing that's carried over there from Willoughby's. Right at the very beginning of this song, just to set the stage for the first things you hear, you immediately hear this familiar sounding tickling of delayed guitar noises, like one of them is fiddling with a knob or purposefully tapping against the guitar just to make some noise as they're getting ready to play. And then only about 10 seconds in, the song explodes with this nasty blown out fill on the snare drum that da-da-da-da-da, and it's just like white noise. It's so distorted and blown out. And and then you get the introduction of these super noisy fuzzy guitars. It's just everything right off the bat tells you exactly what's going on here. It's high energy, punky, noisy garage rock shit. You know, they are just a bunch of young guys having a good time, going nuts, making some kick-ass music. And there's a lead guitar section that comes in and out throughout the song, and I feel like the tone of that is especially lo-fi sounding and a little rough on the ears, honestly, if I might say that. Down, 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 down. That guitar is so beyond fuzzy. It's not fuzzy anymore. It's like furry. It's hairy. It's
furry.
It's like disgusting. It is. But that is the one sound out of everything that stands out. That's like, it's like a little, you ever see the meme that people post in like reactions on Instagram posts and stuff, where it's like a mosquito playing a violin right in someone's ear?
Oh, yeah.
Something is like a reaction image to, to stuff like that. I feel like that, except it's a mosquito with a full stack Marshall amp and a guitar with 15 heavy metal Boss pedals that are just making a wall of noise. And it's, so it's a lot, but it's not horrible, but in headphones sometimes it's a little rough.
Yeah, a fair warning, if you're one of those oddball listeners who is just kind of listening to this album for the first time as you follow along with this podcast episode, first off, props to you. That's pretty adventurous sounding. But second of all, just a fair warning, that is going to be the case, that production-wise on a lot of these songs, very screechy lo-fi guitars that can be pretty rough on the ears. I found that as a result, this album is a lot nicer to listen to on a Bluetooth speaker in a room or on your car stereo.
Yeah, even in the car, I feel like it's not that bad. Yeah. I was listening to some, on my way driving before we got together to record here today, and and I didn't feel like it's as bad, but when I was like at work during the week listening through the album, getting ready for this, I was having a little bit of a rough time. I had to turn it down pretty low just to make it more comfortable. I will say though, despite the rough production, the band sounds incredibly tight to me. They sound incredibly in sync and locked in, and like they practiced ahead of time. They wrote these songs out to be a certain way. And so, it's not sloppy at all.
No.
It sounds tight and solid. They are rock solid. It's just, tone-wise a little rough, but they sound good. They sound like they were ready for this and just absolutely locked in.
I think one point, actually, that helps back that up is at 1 minute 42 seconds into the song, where things just kind of chill out, and the band is showing, hey, we're not just all raw punk and amped up energy all the time. Like, we can slow it down, we can switch it up a little bit. Just wait for the next track.
Yeah.
So at 142, it's almost like they're not slamming on the brakes, but they're kind of gradually applying the brakes and just chilling out a little bit. The instrumentation gets a little more gentle, and you get a few more guitar screeches, but then a single less distorted guitar kind of predominates during this slightly softer period. And then it all comes back, of course, like 30 seconds later at 2 minutes 17. There's this crazy flange effect that kind of makes this whoosh sound, and boom, it's all coming back right in your face again.
Yeah, just after that, I wanted to mention at 2 minutes 20 seconds, there's kind of a solo. It's a shitty solo, I'll say. It's not very good. It's very simple and just kind of like one of them was just fucking around and threw that down, just improvised. But, it's fine. It adds a little something, I guess, right around the end of the track there. It is a very short song. I don't think I said that, by the way, but you probably already know. If you're listening to this, you're probably familiar enough with the album, or have at least listened to it once. And, all these songs are very short. The longest track is 3 minutes and 47 seconds, and the shortest is exactly 2 minutes long on the dot. So these are all very short little bursts of energy here, just like what we came to know from Willoughby's as well.
So unless you're trying to get someone into this band, someone who is already very much a lover of this kind of loud, lo-fi, insanely distorted music, I would really not suggest this album as a starting point for the band. I'm glad you didn't, Joe. You're a guy who's good at curating stuff to people's musical taste. You got me hooked via Fishies,
right?
And I loved and appreciated that. If you, for whatever reason, would have said, "Oh, just start from the beginning, man. Just check out 12 Bar Bruise," I would have been out. Beyond it being rough on the ears, it's very rudimentary, very garagey. But listening to this in hindsight, being a guy who got into the band in more recent years, it's fun to look back with some distance established and be like, oh, so it's nice to see how much they grew from here.
Yeah. I mean, from the time I first started getting into the band, it was probably a couple years by the time I actually listened to this album. It took me a long time to get all the way through their discography and especially to the earlier stuff, because I probably heard like little snippets of it and I'm just like, it's not really for me. It's noisy, it's rough sounding. Like, they have so much other music that I love so much more or whatever, and I just kept listening to those albums. But I will say, preparing for this episode today has given me an appreciation for this album, its place in history. Not only that, but also these songs are fun, and they've grown on me throughout the past couple weeks, listening to it a lot more. So I do have a special place in my heart for it now, more so than I did for a long time, honestly.
Same here, and I feel that we've ripped on the rudimentary nature of the music quite a bit, deserved or not. Let's talk about the lyrics, which I really think are a big step forward on this album compared to Willoughby's Beach. There's a little more depth, a little more meaning. Not that Elbow is a particularly deep song. It's really not. But thanks to the help of KGLW.net, which I needed a lot. I don't know about you. I needed a lot on this episode.
I took a lot of notes from them. We are always giving them credit, the people that run that website and that have written up all these history pages for every single one of their songs. The work is just incredible. They're our best resource for all this information. We're just sort of curators that take a lot of that info and put it into an auditory form that you could just listen to and learn about a whole album at once. But they really are the real deal over there.
Yeah, shout out to Timeland is Wacky and friends who make all that content. Lyrically, what this song seems to refer to is potentially the band knew someone with a connection to a club in Geelong, which is a town in suburban Melbourne, called the Bended Elbow. That part is just speculation, I guess, though. but in an interview with the publication Music Feeds, Stu said, "This song is about a particular person. I won't name names, but some people are bad people."
Spill the tea, Stu.
Spill the tea.
Out them.
I think anyone who knows us personally and knows our band's history could figure it out. Also, it's really fun to play and yell and sing. End quote. But keep in mind that this quote comes from around 2012, and when he says the band's history, he's talking about like when these guys were young bucks. Like they probably have zero contact with this person for the last decade plus by now.
Oh yeah, okay. So this is like an earlier teenage years of them maybe in a totally other band or whatever. It could be related to that, and some douchebag at this club ruffled one of their feathers enough that it was still in their mind when they were writing this album, and they're like, oh, you know what? We have this little inspiration, and also, like you said, it's just fun to yell and sing and be pissed off in a song, so there you go. That's all they needed to make it happen.
Yeah, the lyrics are very blunt. You want, you got, you are such a big shot. You cunt. We've talked about that in Australian parlance. It's a little more of an accepted, gentler word than it is here in the States.
Right.
You know me better than to bend my elbow back. A.
Right.
And then it repeats again later on with another verse, but a lot of A's.
Yep. And the only variation to the second verse is instead of bend my elbow back, he says stab me in the back.
Yes.
So there's a slight variation, but otherwise there's a handful of these songs on this album where they have one verse that's repeated 2 or 3 times, maybe with like something like the A or vocalizations in between and different stuff. But that's it. That's the entirety of the lyrics. So they're essentially just whatever happened with this run-in at this particular person, possibly at this club that was referenced. They're just calling them out, saying, this guy thinks he's hot shit and all of that, and like, you should know better than to keep fucking with me, basically. Just like back off before this gets worse or anything like that is just kind of the general idea I get from it. But other than that, I don't know what else to take from it. That's about it.
So after that big burst of energy to open the record, another burst of energy hits us on track 2. This is Muckraker.
So Muckraker starts with a false start with the guitar and a little snare hit, a little ding, 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 and then a single smack of the snare.
Thump.
Again, they're doing this thing where they just make noise, like they just can't help but sort of twiddle on the guitars because they're all excited and ready to record the track. So they just leave that shit in there. There's also the introduction of some synthesizer in the main melody. Once everything kicks off, at first it sounds like it's going to go into some chaotic, punky, fast song like the last one. But then when everything kicks in, it's actually pretty pleasant and nice sounding. There's this little synth and it's slightly slower in tempo than the last track. It's a nice little change from Elbow right before it.
Yeah, it's a good kind of mid-tempo tune. But there are several changes, and I kind of gave a foreshadowing in the last track discussion.
There are, yeah.
As it kind of sits in that kind of mid-tempo pocket with some nice harmonies. Eventually, at 52 seconds, the song goes off-leash, I call it.
Yeah.
That's what I put down in my notes. It's like you're letting a wild dog off its leash in the dog park.
Yep.
It's like,
yeah,
and
it jumps up
and it picks up.
Yeah. That after that section, it jumps up in tempo. That goes on for quite a while, actually. So yeah, we have more of those vocalizations with that, and the Muckraker, and then eventually it does slow down again, goes back to that part with the synth and everything, kind of jumps back and forth, and it's really fun. This is, I think, part of their experimenting and growth here is like having them play around with, instead of just picking a tempo and sticking to it and being like, okay, it's this fast, crazy song the whole time for 2.5 minutes or whatever. It's there's some variation, and it's nice. It offers some variety and helps with not getting as fatigued listening to it, having that variation, because if you just have pure speed and noise the whole time. It's like eventually it all starts to sound the same, and it's like it's too much. You just start to like zone out from it. But yeah, this variation is really nice. I think it's pretty, and makes the song stand out a lot.
For sure, and that keyboard hook that you mentioned, da, 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 that provides kind of a nice backbone to the song, I think. And also, you hear that incorporated in a cool way as the song continues. Later in the track, around the 2-minute 26-second mark, they keep that faster tempo that they established like 20 seconds or so before this, but they incorporate that keyboard melody from the slower portion in a sped up form. So they're not just like going back and forth between, okay, slower, now faster, now slower, now faster. They picked up those elements from that more mid-tempo section and then sped it up, so it feels like the song is growing and developing. It's not like this linear kind of blah
like static
structure
thing. Yeah. I will also add in another sound that's interesting in here is there's some theremin in there. We mentioned the theremin made a couple small appearances on Willoughby's Beach, and that's Eric behind that there. And it pops up around the end of this track. I didn't write down a particular timestamp, but during the outro section, you hear this woo 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 woo, like this wild theremin just going crazy, making noise, which is fun and another unique thing about it. Just to read some of the background from Stu from an interview and some of the stuff from KGLW.net about this song. Stu was talking about Muckraker in this track-by-track rundown for this publication called Mess and Noise, which doesn't seem to be around anymore. Actually, when you go to the website, it opens in the Wayback Machine, or at least the link that's on the KGLW.net website takes you to a Wayback Machine thing of the website so you can read the article. But he did these little quotes and rundowns for each track, which was really cool to have for this album. So Stu in that said, quote, "One of the newest. It's about being a shit kicker. A few people have said it sounds like Green Day, which is not really a good thing. Ah, well."
Okay, I saw that quote too, and I wondered what he meant by that. Does he really just not like Green Day, or is it more just that wasn't what we meant or what we were going for, so we didn't like those comparisons?
I don't think it sounds anything like Green Day.
I didn't think so either.
But I guess it's just because they're like, they're a big mainstream act and, kind of a poppy version of like punk rock and whatever. And, I guess, I don't know if he straight up doesn't like them or he just doesn't feel that they associate with them at all because he just feels like they're so different.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I think 2012, that probably would have been around the time that those Uno Dos Tre records came out, and I think those were very unpopular. Yeah, and so Green Day was their stock was probably pretty low at that time.
Maybe
especially.
It wasn't the best point in history to be compared to them, I guess.
Nah.
If it was back in the late 90s or something, or like Dookie era, maybe you'd be like, hell yeah, Green Day rules, but
yeah.
Maybe not. Okay, so as for the title, Muckraker, there is a quote from our friends at KGLW.net again, who explain a little bit about what that means. A muckraker is a journalist who attempts, legitimately or not, to expose the secrets and injustices of corporations, politicians, and industries, often with the intent to cause a scandal or discuss reform. Now, I'll be honest, I don't see how that connects very strongly with the lyrics of the song. I guess that's what the term technically means, and he just thought it was a cool word and could maybe be interpreted in a certain way. But muck as in just like dirt, mud, shit, whatever, and a raker, somebody who's scraping shit, I guess, like scraping the bottom of the barrel for trying to come up with some kind of scandal or news story is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Because like a journalist exposing injustices, that sounds like a good thing to me,
right.
But if they're doing it legitimately and honestly, but a lot of journalists are just trying to get the eyes on their article, get the clicks, get the, all of that. So maybe that's kind of where this lands, is like the people who are doing it for the wrong reason kind of thing, just for their own gain and not because they actually care.
Maybe, yeah. I took this more to mean as like a literal raker of muck, kind of like what you were getting at a minute ago, where it's like, okay, this is a person who's kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel of society, and not necessarily in a low life journalistic sense, but in just more of a this person's down on their luck and kind of down in the dumps, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Like he maybe twisted the meaning. He meaning Stu, but. when I first started diving into my research on this album, looking at the title Muckraker for this song, I'm like, that awakens like a deep-seated memory from history class in school. I'm like, what was that?
Yeah.
And so then I happen upon that explanation of journalism in this form. A particularly vivid example of muckraking journalism was Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. For those unfamiliar, that came out in like 1905. It was a full novel. But Upton Sinclair was an author and a journalist, and in The Jungle, he basically worked incognito in a huge Chicago meat packing facility, one of those old stockyards where they kept pigs and steer and whatever animals that were butchered for meat. And he basically spent 7 weeks working incognito in these horribly filthy conditions that a lot of immigrants were subjected to at the time.
Yeah.
A lot of Eastern European, Central European immigrants working in this Chicago stockyard were subjected to horribly filthy conditions that no human being should ever be forced to work or live in. And basically, he helped kind of bring this to everyone's attention, and he kind of helped stoke some societal change there. Now, of course, here in the year 2026, things are still far from perfect, but it's people like those in the more literal sense, I think, of the term muckraker as far as journalism. These are important people, so it's so funny to see such a juxtaposition between that and lyrics like, clear the cobwebs off my brain, ants have came, it smells like rain, piss and shit off porcelain, I'll rake them up, it's just my luck.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. But either way, that's the entirety of the lyrics. The only the one part of that stands out to me, the line piss and shit off porcelain is so funny to me because it invokes the image of like using a dirty public bathroom or something, and there's like poop stains stuck to the inside of the bowl, and for some reason your brain just has to pee right at that and try to clean it off with your stream of piss. Yes. Like, I picture exactly that thing. I feel like we've all done that. We've all been there at some point. So it's such a funny, like, just out of the blue thing to throw into the lyric of a song like that. But it gives me a good chuckle, and it's, as we said, it's a fun song with a lot of redeeming qualities, even if the actual meaning of the lyrics is a little vague. So
this is one of 4 songs on the album that had a music video, by the way. All 4 of these videos associated with songs on the album were created by Zonk Vision, which was a venture of Jason Galea and Greg Holden. This video was shot in Anglesey, the town where Stu and a couple of the other guys grew up, using VHS cameras. So it looks real old school, and you can see kind of the thumbnail that's embedded in the KGLW.net page for this song, that's totally a VHS kind of looking image.
Oh, yeah.
And it features some appearances from Stu's dog Dipper at the time, and kind of appropriately to his name, he takes occasional dips in the little body of water that's behind the band when they're performing in the video. But they're like by this little pond or stream or whatever. Sometimes they're boogie boarding into that mucky looking water. They prefer the muddy water, apparently.
That's right. Foreshadowing.
And there are alternating shots of the guys golfing off of a hilltop nearby and just watching the ball sail into the canyon nearby.
Yeah.
And it's just kids having fun.
Just guys being dudes.
Guys being dudes in an unproblematic way. You love to see it. What I will say made me nervous about parts of the video was Eric kind of had his gear like partly submerged in the water along the banks at various points. No electronics there, but a couple of the guys' amps were very, very close to the water's edge, and I'm just like,
I do love the shots of Cavs when he's drumming. He just has like a snare and maybe one cymbal. It's not the whole drum set, but it's just standing in like the shallow, like foot deep water or whatever, and he's just sitting there like kind of like almost looks like he's like jokingly playing along because he only has like a single drum. Like he doesn't have the whole kit, so he'll just be sitting there, and like Stu, I think at one point is standing next to him playing guitar, standing in the water as well, and looked like they were just having fun with it. I love the VHS aesthetic, and it fits perfectly with the sound of these songs. All these actually all the music videos, I don't know if you just said, but they were all filmed the same kind of way with these VHS cameras and everything.
The same day.
Yeah, they were all filmed together, so it just fits perfectly with the aesthetic of the music and the visuals perfectly. All right, so that's all for Muckraker. Let's go along to track number 3. This is 9.
Well, true to a song bearing the title of Nine, of course, that's the German word for no, Never, Never, Never Again. A song all about, I drank too much. I don't want to put that shit in my body ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah, not normal for us to jump to the lyrics right from the jump like that, but that's kind of the gist of what they're getting at in this song. However, this is a song that I feel has a nice little hook to it. Never, never, never again. And it kind of has that undulating, like, wavy pattern to the melody. And it's fun, but it's not only Stu's lyrics, it's the backing vocals with kind of that harmonizing shit never again.
I love
in
it.
a slow pace. And also that really whiny, like, high-pitched keyboard kind of echoing Stu's vocal melody.
Yeah.
It's a cool song.
Yeah, it's a really fun song with a lot of little unique stuff going on. Another thing, so you mentioned like the backing vocals and little harmonies in the background that I love. The section where he starts counting and going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9 is great. I love just the sort of the trippy, like, spiraling nature of that as he's counting. I don't know if it's supposed to be like him counting how many drinks he's had.
That's what I felt.
That's how I interpret it. And then the 9 part, instead of the number, it's a homophone of the number 9. It's actually 9, N-E-I-N, the German word for no. And so it's like him counting how many drinks he's had and then going, no, no, no. Like, oh, God, I've gone too far. I'm fucked up again. I feel like shit. I'm full of poison. You know, this makes me sick. I'm never drinking again. But because that section is repeated more than once, it's like he's in a loop of I mean, you know, it could be a deeper, more serious thing about alcoholism or whatever. But like, you know, the guy is having drinks and too much and then being like, oh no, I'm never doing this again. And then it's like counting again, 1, 2, 3. It's like, oh no, here we go again. He's stuck in this terrible loop of drinking and regretting it, but having a hard time stopping, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those types of, whether based on a specific true story or multiple true stories of one of the guys or multiple of the guys when they were young. You know, I've heard in years past from like high school classmates or college classmates from when they were younger, like, you know, trying drinks of this or that when mom and dad weren't home and then like instant regret, like, oh, I hate this now
this
after having
sucks.
too much. Yeah.
Why do adults drink this? It sucks.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it definitely plays off less so as a darker, like somebody a little bit older and wiser with a serious problem, and more so like a teenager finding out the hard way, so to speak.
Yeah. This track has never been played live before at all. It's one of the few on this album that have never been played live, or maybe the only one.
So you're saying 9?
No,
it has not been played live?
If you ask them if they would play it, they would say 9. No, it's never been played live, but apparently, and I haven't been able to find a clip or audio of this, of how it was referenced, but apparently Ambi referenced it at Red Rocks in 2024. I don't know how, a quote from it or something. I don't know. I wasn't able to dig up a clip of the moment because those shows, there's a lot of material there that I'd have to dig through. It's been a long time since I've listened to, I have listened to that full Red Rock set, but it's been a while and I have no idea where that little reference to it would be. I don't know if maybe he was doing the counting during the melody of another song I have no idea.
Yeah, and I don't believe it's listed even as a tease on KGLW.net, so that kind of added to the mystery for me. So yeah, definitely worth a deep dive one of these days. So this song is really fun. It has that nice little hooky melody that I mentioned already. That publication that you mentioned earlier, Joe, Mess and Noise, there's another Stu quote from that on this song. And Stu says, started out as a jam on a song by The Clean, which were a New Zealand indie rock band, and sort of slowly evolved into something completely different. So you can see with his explanations of some of these songs that it wasn't so much just get in the studio and bang it out. I have something in mind and let's do it. It sounds like some of these songs like took on different lives and progressed differently creatively for the band along the way, and this was one of those. So a really nice hooky tune here on track 3. There is, by the way, another music video for this song recorded the same day as was the Muckraker video. And the best way I can describe this one is the band are in a small room. It looks almost like a small club, but it could easily just be one of their houses. And there are all these psychedelic patterns projected onto the ceiling with a physical projector in the room. It's onto the ceiling. It's onto the walls. There are flashing strobe lights and a smoke machine. It's almost like they're creating their own club space for themselves. Yeah. But there are doubling effects, applied after the recording, and lots of fisheye lens work going on. If you're a person who's kind of photosensitive or sensitive to those types of things, kind of be forewarned, because that could be a tough watch for you.
Yeah.
But very visually stimulating and really like the ultimate just kids having fun with gear. All right, we're already a quarter of the way through this album. Let's scoot right along to track number 4, the title track, 12 Bar Bruise.
All right, here it is, the crustiest sounding song on the entire album because it was recorded entirely on iPhones for some reason. This song was recorded using the voice memo app on 4 or 5 iPhones all at once, and then Stu recorded vocals as well by singing directly into one of these iPhones. They seem to have done this just as sort of an experiment. I don't think they had any real reason for it. I mean, everything else was recorded in a studio. Apparently they had some hesitancy about including the song on the album at first, but after it was mixed, they decided it didn't sound sonically too much different from the rest of the material, so it kept in. It got to stay. But man, I don't know about you, but I noticed the difference sonically from this and the rest of the album.
Yeah, vaguely it does kind of fit like sonically with the rest of the songs, but if you have kind of the ears for musical critique like I like to think that we both do,
yeah,
there is certainly a difference, and I came up with all sorts of adjectives for the production quality or lack thereof on this song, but crusty I think is the perfect way to describe it.
I was proud of that adjective. That feels like the best way to go about it.
Holy crap, dude. So what I put next to vocals by Stu on the description on my notes for this song, muddled beyond recognition. Stu's vocals.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is all along.
It's like he's singing into a Mylar balloon in the next room. Like
in the next room.
In the next room. It's terrible. Or like God. Over like through a phone call or something. Yeah.
Something that did stand out to me about this song, though, totally aside from the production, was that this feels like a very 1960s influenced groove, like kind of a poppy 60s feel. And it wasn't just from a general sense. Like, there was something in the back of my brain going, I've heard a song with something like this in it. And I don't think this is a clip that we should dare drop in, because we might get a little dig on it.
Yep.
But to you, the listener, check it out maybe on your own time. The Beach Boys song You're So Good to Me features a vocal melody that's very, very similar, a little bit faster, and it changes a little more frequently, but check that out. It very much, for that reason, kind of harkens back to that sunny 1960s feel, so check that out for a little fun retro comparison.
Unfortunately, this title track song, with its crusty assness, is the longest track on the album. And I mean, listen, maybe I'm being a little harsh on it, but let's be real. It sounds like shit. Like I don't know. I think that's like just objective. You could still like the song and still vibe with it regardless of the audio quality. But yeah, it's the longest track on the album, 3 minutes and 47 seconds. So it definitely stands out. Feels a lot longer than the other songs because some of them, are really packed down closer to that 2-minute mark. The title of the song, and therefore the title of the album as well, comes from the term 12-bar blues, which we didn't touch earlier, but I think this is a good time to with this song. 12-bar blues is a very famous and popular blues musical progression. So that's where the name comes from. It's like a blues standard sound. You hear it in endless amounts of songs. And so it's just a play off of that. And the phrase 12-bar bruise, they play around with that play on the phrase in the lyrics as well.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate that it is so hard to listen to from a production quality standpoint because I really think there's some serious potential to this song otherwise. And this is what I meant to foreshadow earlier with where the band takes some big swings on this album and some of them are misses. This is the big slugger who gets fooled badly on a curveball and goes spinning down into the dirt on one knee looking foolish on an early swing trying to hit a home run. That's what this song is, in my opinion. There's a fun little 60s influence pop song beneath the layers of muck and crustiness and whatever.
Yeah, once you rake the muck out of the way, there's something there. But
there's something, yeah. And I will say there are a couple of somewhat interesting instrumental touches. At 1 minute 17 seconds, there's an instrumental break that lasts about 30 seconds, some guitar noodles that are somewhat interesting. And the bass does this cool turnaround kind of near the end of the, I don't know if you would call it the chorus or the verse, whatever, but it kind of does this boom, boom, doom, There's like a little attitude to it, maybe a little bend, I guess.
There's finally a little something different from the bass, because otherwise the whole song is just bum, bum, boom, 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 boom. And it gets a little tiring. I feel like this song could have been better, could have had a higher place in my heart if there was a little more variation. It's a little static for me on top of sounding the worst of them all production-wise. So it's a little rough. But one thing it has going for it is so far this has the most actual words in the lyrics so far.
Yeah.
It's got more than just, 4 lines of lyrics. It's got 2 pretty decent chunks of lyrics that are repeated twice. It's another one that's a little weird to dissect, a little hard to pull the real meaning out of it. I honestly don't know what the hell this song's supposed to be about. This is the one I think I struggled with the most as far as pulling meaning out of it.
Yeah. The first verse, for example, I'd better be slave. First of all, what? That's not a sentence. Everything's the wrong tense. Everything's the wrong form there. I'd make some money. Okay, that's better. And when it gets rough, we can bruise some stuff. But look at my dick. Bet you it's limp. Should I quit drink? On the song 9, I think the answer would have been that.
Yes.
Should I quit drink? It makes me think that 12 bar booze is 12 bar bruise. Ooh, that fun little whoop. That ooh, those are kind of fun. I find those entertaining. But okay, I can at least glean something from that very end. 12 bar booze is 12 bar bruise.
Right.
You drink too much, you're gonna get hurt.
Drink
one
bad,
way or another.
Alcohol bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, of course, that particular line you mentioned, but look at my dick, I bet you it's limp, is the biggest standout to me because it's just funny and it's showing a little bit of their, young, immature side of things.
But it's too bad you can't make it out when you're listening to the song.
Yeah. I never knew that was the words until researching the lyrics, until looking them up. I had never done so before. And I mean, that's pretty much the case for all these songs. I didn't know what most of the lyrics were because it's all just, this one more than any of them, of course, Under the Muck. But yeah.
Near the end of the song, Stu does his like that kind of this back and forth, and I can picture him like in a mocking way, kind of shaking his hips to that.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, did you notice this? 3 minutes 37 seconds after the song is completed, I think it's Stu on mic does this high pitch.
Yeah,
almost like he's doing the dog head tilt, like looking toward the producer, like, was that a good take? What do you think? Like looking for approval,
right?
And then oh.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so funny. I didn't even think about it at the time. It's just a little it's just a little question and an answer. Yep, good enough. Put it on the album. It's the title track, no less. Put it on it's perfect. Put it on the album and give it the title track status. Perfect.
I don't think we have a ton else to say about this song, but I do want to say that when I was digging for information on this one, about 6 years ago on the KGLW subreddit, a Reddit user named Handshakes Are Hard asked the meaning of this song, and it seems like this user's first language was not English. They made that clear. And a since deleted account replied with the following. I think it's 12 bar bruise because it's 12 bar blues / rock progressions that literally bruise your fucking eardrums.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Works for me.
Thank you. Yep, works for me. All right, after that beautiful mucky title track, let's move on along to track number 5. This is Garage Lydiard. Or Garage, however you prefer. Here it is.
I'm glad you gave two different pronunciation options for the word garage there, Joe, because I did want to touch on that. I'm wondering here, because there is a connection and a meaning behind the title of this song. This song is named in part after Gareth Lydiard, who is a fellow Australian musician from the band The Drones and Tropical Fuckstorm. There's a Giz connection there further on in history that I don't think we've touched on yet on the pod before.
No.
But I believe that, we here in the States tend to say garage Lydiard. I wonder if in the Australian dialect, kind of like the British dialect, I wonder if they pronounce it garage. And so it says garage Lydiard, which sounds very much closer to Gareth.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It sounds a lot closer to the name. Yeah.
Anyway, this is after what I think we can pretty fairly agree on was somewhat of a low point on the album so far. This picks it right back up,
Hell
man.
yeah.
High energy, lots of Ambrose puffing away on the harmonica, and this one's nasty. There's like that snarl from Stu at the beginning, rah! And then it sounds like he's going to go into like a ZZ Top LaGrange kind of thing, but it's another fake out, of course. Another thing that I think helps make this song feel a lot brighter than its predecessor in the track listing, significantly less distortion on Stu's vocals.
Yeah, quite a bit cleaner, and I mean, especially by contrast from the title track last time, it sounds a lot cleaner. It's a nice. It's fresh. It's nice and fresh on the ears when you come into this song after 12 Bar Blues. You mentioned the harmonica. There is you said Ambrose was puffing away. He's straight up smoking that shit. Just sounds incredible, kicks ass, and I love sort of the call and response that's going on between the harmonica blares in between the vocals that are being sung.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my head. Yeah, it just sounds awesome. I love that. It's very satisfying. Just from day one, from the earliest days of the band, no, his name's not Harmonica. Ambrose has been shredding the shit out of that harmonica since day one.
His name might as well be Harmonica.
Ambrose.
Ambrose
on the harmonica.
Oh my God. This is one of those songs where Ambrose starts to earn his stripes, I think, and of course we'll get to a track later on where that's even more the case. He's becoming a lot more prominent member of the band here on 12 Bar Bruise compared to on Willoughby's Beach, and I just love how the interplay between him and Stu, and we already touched on that call and response near the beginning of the song. There are more iterations of that later, but how about at 51 seconds, a brief harmonica rip, and then Stu kind of goes back to his main, again, it's hard to classify verse versus chorus in a lot of these songs.
Yeah.
The structure is a little bit muddy, but Stu's going back to, oh, my head. But it's the mix is so much less cluttered. There's just drums and bass behind him at that point. And it feels nice and simple. So after the sensory overload that we've gotten so much on the preceding 4 tracks, that stripped back section of this song, oh, it's nice.
Yeah, it's much needed little respite. It's nice. It's very nice.
But that aside, the song continues, and about 1:45, the real chunky harmonica section comes in. Ambrose puffs on it for a little longer.
Yeah, he gets a little bit of a solo going on the harmonica.
Kind of a solo, and then at 1:52, I noticed this just last night after a full week of prepping for this episode. At 1:52, Stu says, "Yeah, Ambrose!" He's cheering him on.
Yeah. Fuck it up, Ambrose, basically is what he's saying. Yeah, this is really the harmonica and everything Amby's doing on that is really a big highlight, a big standout for the song. And there's a couple tracks, there's some more coming up where he goes apeshit on the harmonica that we will have a lot to say about as well. I wanted to mention a quote from Stu where he said that the song started out as a twist and shout type of song, like this old school rock and roll kind of sound to it, and it was a little bit slower, but producer Paul Maybury told them it would work better faster, so the faster version is what they ended up sticking with and going with here on the album.
Yeah.
And fast it is a little ball of energy.
Yeah, I sat with that quote for a little bit, just trying to envision what a faster twist and shout would sound like, and that actually makes a lot of sense because especially for me, the call and response part, because, the song Twist and Shout, and shake it up, baby, shake it up, baby.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot like a sped up Twist and Shout.
Right.
Very,
but it's
very
just
cool.
the harmonica instead of backing vocals.
Yeah. Very simple lyrics in general. Oh my head, my head's all bleak and it makes my love so rough. My knees, oh my knees are weak and it makes for walking tough.
That's how I feel as I'm approaching age 30 and, a little more than a year from now I'll be 30, and that's how I'm starting to feel.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
I just rang in my 34th year of life yesterday, sir.
Yes.
And this, you don't know the half of it yet.
And Stu was only, 20 at the time?
Something like that, yeah.
What the hell are you complaining about, dude?
Call me an old soul. Jeez. So the lyrics are very simple, but if you're on Tidal, like I am listening to Giz, I don't know what it is with the other streaming services, but at the part where I mentioned in 1:52, Ambrose, Stu kind of cheering Ambrose on mid-harmonica solo, Tidal picks up that spoken word as, I have rickets. What on earth?
Okay, so just for a little breaking the fourth wall a little bit, it's going to be cut out, but we were Spenser was just about to mention how he saw in the lyrics that there's this part where he says, I have rickets, and he had this whole thing. He was going to talk about what rickets is and how it relates or whatever. And then he showed it to me, and I'm like, wait, that's what it says in Tidal. And we listened to it, and no, it's the part where he goes, oh yeah, Ambrose during the harmonica solo. For some reason, Tidal has that written out as I have rickets. So we were sitting here just cracking up for a couple minutes. So we mentioned before how I've had some quarrels with YouTube Music's lyrics tab being totally fucked.
Crown and Candle is lost in me.
Yes,
I will never forget it.
Absolutely. I'm actually curious now if I check YouTube Music what it thinks is being said there. It has it too. I have rickets. YouTube Music has the same. I didn't see that before because I already know not to trust it. So I only take my lyrical notes straight from KGLW.net because I know that they're getting it right from the liner notes of the albums and official sources. So I only take it from them. I do not trust any of these goddamn streaming platforms. It literally says, I have rickets. When he goes, oh yeah, Ambrose. So, wow.
And I as you just mentioned, Joe, I took the liberty of writing down the definition of rickets, the disease, in my notes, thinking that was actually in there. And for those wondering, that it's actually not far off, believe it or not, from the rest of the lyrical content. Rickets is a disease that exhibits softening and weakening of bones in children, often because of an extreme and prolonged vitamin D or calcium deficiency. So there's definitely an element of pain there, and like not receiving adequate nutrition.
Kind of appropriate. I mean, even though it sounds funny for him to, if he was actually saying that, to randomly announce during the harmonica solo, I have rickets.
Yeah,
that sounds kind of funny, but it would fit with the rest of the lyrical content in a way. So I don't know, man.
Okay, this latest misheard Giz lyrics brought to you by, now that's what I call Giz Volume 1. I wonder how many more of these are left in the Giz catalog from here on out.
Yeah, they are fun. They are fun to come across. We should keep looking at the lyrics on our streaming services just for finding funny shit like that, even though they're so unreliable for getting the official lyrics.
Oh, God. I want to say one more thing here on Garage Lydiard. It's kind of a shame this has never been played live, and it's actually one of only 2, along with 9, that the band has never played live off of this album. Wouldn't mind this bust out. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near the top of my list, but this could be a fun one.
Yeah. Any of these could be fun. I would love to see a little. I have yet to be at one of their shows where they bust out a real old track like this. So usually the oldest you get is, stuff from Float Along and like Oddments and Paper Mache. Like those are all within the first couple years of the band's, at least studio album producing history. But yeah, it's rare to get some of these. There are a couple that make appearances more often than others, and we'll maybe get to a couple of those later that you're more likely to hear if you see them live, that they bust out once in a while. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing any of these old tracks live. I think the way they play them live, they tend to extend them a bit and jam on them because they're such short songs. So I think it'd be really fun to just watch them go nuts and play around for an extended jam on one of these.
Yeah. So we are now in the midst of a really interesting 3-track run here in the middle of the album. Track 4, sludgy, crusty, Very rough. Track 5, which we've just finished, very upbeat and fun and exciting. Now we go on to track number 6, another oddball on this record. Broderick Smith returns. Actually, we discussed his work on a previous episode, Eyes Like the Sky, but chronologically, this actually came before Eyes Like the Sky, as Broderick Smith provides narration on track 6, Sam Cherry's Last Shot.
Nearly to the entrance of the Canyon of Olympia, known as the Wild Rose Pass, and suddenly about 30 mounted Indians dashed from the bushes along the stream, cutting it off in retreat towards the fort and driving it up the lateral canyon.
Quite a departure from the rest of the album on track 6 here, Sam Cherry's Last Shot, as you mentioned in your introduction, Spencer, featuring Broderick Smith, father of Ambrose. And we all know him well from their follow-up album, Eyes Like the Sky, that would come later, and we've already covered that one on the show. This song is essentially the predecessor to that album. They made this song, and they liked it and had fun with it, and they wanted to do a whole kind of concept story spread out across an entire album, so that's what Eyes Like the Sky became. It's this old Western twangy guitar sound and harmonica as well, with broad storytelling overlaid on top of it. So overall, the song is pretty calm. It's kind of ambient. It's just filling the space with this percussion and, like I said, the twangy guitar and a little harmonica here and there. I have a bit of a summary here from KGLW.net that just kind of gives a full description of what the story is that Brod is reading, and I think it's just easiest to read it right from their quote. At the end of chapter 39 of the 1882 book, 33 Years Among Our Wild Indians, Richard Irving Dodge described a grisly scene from his time in the United States Army. From October 10th to October 30th of 1855, Dodge escorted and protected a group of privates and officers in Fort Davis, Texas. Included in the group was Sam Cherry, a guide who was navigating the land in search of wood. On the night of the 30th, Dodge reported to a colonel and asked if he would be needed for muster day, which is a day of enrollment. The colonel, having forgotten about the event, told Dodge to assign someone else to guard Cherry's group, that being one Sergeant Love. On the morning of October 31st, however, Love, Cherry, and the rest did not return to the fort. An investigation began after a report of a dead body, and what they found was Sam Cherry dead, pinned under his horse. Sergeant Love and the rest of the group were found later, mutilated and killed. They came to a conclusion later that day while traveling. They were ambushed by Native Americans. Sam Cherry managed to break through their blockade, but his horse fell and broke its neck, holding Cherry in place as they advanced. Grabbing his gun, he fired at them 5 times before pointing the barrel of his gun at his forehead and pulling the trigger, shocking his pursuers, who then ran off. The title of the section of the book, Sam Cherry's Last Shot.
Boom.
Wow.
Knife twist.
So that was a lot. It was a bit long, but I wanted to include that because that is the full summary of the story of what's being talked about, this particular chapter, this little passage from the book here. So that's essentially the story that Brod is telling. He's reading this passage from this book, and that's the full story that's being told there.
Yeah. What I find funny is that once or twice in the background, if you listen very carefully in headphones, you can hear a page rustling as Brod is reading.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's printed out sheet or if he's reading from a book.
Physically reading from the book, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like he has that script or whatever, the excerpt printed like right up against the mic, and in a brief pause at the end of a sentence, you can hear this crackle of paper.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, and so you can picture this like home recording.
Right, like you're just sitting right in someone's living room along with Brod and just listening to him tell the story with this kind of eerie, twangy Western music in the background.
Yeah, instrumentally, this song, of course, would be right perfectly at home on Eyes Like the Sky, which would come out the next year. One difference, though, that I would say is that this song, I guess if you want to call it a song technically, is much more wordy than anything on Eyes Like the Sky, because there's obviously so much more detail to the narrative because it's straight from a book and rather than a work of fiction like Eyes Like the Sky.
Yeah.
And so he's reading directly from this book, and while the instruments keep going, Brod's narration just keeps on going and going, whereas Eyes Like the Sky, it's a lot more sparse, and you almost let the music and the oral landscape fill in the gaps for you. But here, there's really nothing left to the imagination. It's all there in spoken word.
Yeah, it's a lot denser. Like the spoken word is pretty much just there the entire time. Doesn't have too much of a break to it like the tracks on Eyes Like the Sky do. On that was an original story that I believe Broad was the writer of for that album. So it's, they were able to pace it kind of how they wanted to, spread it out a little more across an entire album, let the music breathe and do some cool stuff in between the different sort of chapters of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But here it's just this one big chunk just being read out over the music. And so, they couldn't spread it out as much in that way. But it's still really cool to see sort of the origin of that idea and that they would go on to make a full album like this. And I will say his vocals are also like pretty distorted. Like his storytelling, it's not just like this clean, clear voice. I guess just to keep with the aesthetic of the rest of the album, they have this sort of effect of sort of a blown out speaker kind of sound distortion on his voice as well. Eyes Like the Sky is definitely a lot crisper and cleaner of a listen.
Yeah. Well, I recall, and I think there maybe is some further distortion on Sam Cherry, but I recall when we were doing Eyes Like the Sky that they had Broad, speaking into a microphone, and the output came out through a guitar amp.
Oh.
And there's distortion, and then they put a microphone in front of the guitar amp.
Oh, that's right.
Which was part of what gave it that distortion.
So that's maybe they did the same kind of thing here. Then that's
probably the similar, if not
maybe
the
Eyes
same
Like the
thing.
Sky wasn't as clean sounding as I'm remembering because it's been a while. I'm just, I mean, compared to this, it's definitely a little crisper, but
yeah. Going back to that Mess and Noise publication that we've cited on a couple of other tracks so far, Stu's explanation of this one, he says it was originally written and recorded as an instrumental. We considered syncing a chapter of Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian to the song, but that was too hard. So I can only imagine maybe that was even wordier or even like more awkward, and staccato wouldn't have been smooth. But yeah, so it started as an instrumental, which if there was an instrumental version out there that existed somewhere, that would be cool to listen to and just kind of vibe to.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool little brief history there.
Cool little tune. Definitely a standout right here at about the middle point of the album. And I don't really have much else to say about that. That's pretty much all that is to say about it. It's interesting. It's unique, but very different than the whole rest of the songs here.
Believe it or not, there's a music video for this song, spoken word track, that I found out very late in my research process for this episode. And what it is basically a montage of clips from the 1967 film Death Rides a Horse. And there are projections superimposed that kind of give it texture and kind of give it this mottled, like worn look to the film.
Yeah.
To a film that I'm sure looks worn already, being from 1967, kind of that Technicolor era. But
sepia tone kind of look to it.
It's very funky looking. All these different scenes are kind of taken out of context, and your mind kind of tries to piece together the bits of the story. But it's fun seeing, the word mark at the end, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, in that same kind of 1960s quality as they put the video together.
Yeah. All right, so that's all for Sam Cherry's Last Shot. Let's keep things moving. Going back to a little bit more of a familiar sound from the rest of the album. This next track is High Hopes Low.
Starting off the back half of the album with a bang and maybe a pew pew also. That beginning, dude, that sound effect at the beginning, which we found out was the Disco 2 preset from a Casio keyboard. It's not somebody setting a high score in an old-fashioned arcade, as you might think, with those pew 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 pew.
Well, I have it listed. My first note for this song is quote sick ass laser beam beat at the top of the song.
Yeah, laser beam beat. Yeah,
sick ass laser beam beat. I love it. It's just something so weird that really stands out and catches your ear. You're like, what the fuck? Where is this song going? It's just a little introductory noise just to get your attention, and then when the actual song kicks in, it doesn't contain any of that. It's not that different from a lot of the other songs. It goes right into a fast, punky garage rock song, just like most of the others. So
I will say a little bit cleaner, perhaps in production, than some of the songs on the first half of the record. And I like the main groove powered by the guitar and the relentless drums. Boom, doon, 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 boom, doon, doon. Keeps that nice groove going. I don't think this song, for the most part, hurts the ears too much compared to some earlier tracks. But it's a fun, really upbeat kind of one that I actually found myself like snapping my fingers to during work yesterday, during a particularly busy day. This was kind of a breath of fresh air. And it just got me jamming to it. I was having a fun time listening. And perhaps a song with a little bit of a lighthearted, maybe self-deprecating message behind it. We don't have to get into lyrics just yet, but it's lighthearted and fun and energetic, I think, are the broad, strokey sort of adjectives I can give this song.
Yeah. Overall, I really dig the bass groove of the song, just the doon 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 doon. It's really fun, really groovy. It's fast, but it's just like this nice little shuffle you just want to move to. There's a particular section I made a note of at about the 2-minute mark, just before the 2-minute mark. There's this slightly calmer sounding section with this sort of solo going on. It's basically just breaks down to just the drums and bass. There is still a guitar making a bunch of just delayed like noises, like all this clinking and clicking noises from the guitar. So that's still there. But there's this other instrument that comes in that I think is a guitar. I guess it could potentially be coming from a keyboard. It's got a really unique sound to it, but it does this sort of solo.
Yeah.
It's kind of muted and soft sounding, kind of in the background, but it's really pretty sounding. I think it's a guitar just ran through some particular effects in EQ to make it sound that way. But hard to tell, with the quality and just kind of lo-fi nature of all of these songs. But it's got some cool tremolo to it as well. So that's a really standout moment. That's just a nice break from the rest of the chaos. But after this part, it kicks right back up into a blown out ambi harmonica solo section where he gets to go nuts again. That's got some nasty sounding tremolo effect to the harmonica as well.
I'm glad you mentioned the harmonica section there from Ambrose, because that was one of the major notes I took on this song. At 2 minutes 14 seconds, Stu gives a little yup, and we remember from earlier years of the band, and I think maybe in the first time you saw them live, Stu pulled out a lot of those yup as kind of cues to the fellow band members to begin a solo or to start on a particular beat, something or other. He does that for Ambi here, and then he begins ripping on the harmonica. Around 2 minutes 40 seconds in that harmonica solo for Ambrose. I don't know if you've ever come across these, Joe, but on the Instagram algorithm will kind of feed me like various old music footage, and sometimes I come across these like deep south harmonica players, like guys from the 1940s who just like sit by the railroad tracks and like bottle of, or malt liquor in a brown paper bag by their sides, that kind of thing. But it would show them like playing their harmonica in this like restored footage, and something about the tremolo effect and the distortion on that part of the harmonica solo from Ambrose, and he repeats that figure a few times. I feel like Ambrose is sitting right by those railroad tracks in kind of that Mississippi River Delta region somewhere. It's so of a time, and it's so tasty.
The song contains just this very simple 5 lines of lyrics that are repeated a couple times. Well, I ain't that dumb, but I ain't that smart. And I can't spell, but I can sound it out. Gotta keep your high hopes low. And that's it. That's the lyrics.
Yeah, I was about to get into the lyrics earlier in this song discussion. To me, I'm getting notes of like, here I am talking about like it's a craft brew. I'm getting notes of tempering expectations, of maybe some self-deprecating, like, I know I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I can get by.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's well said. I think that's a good way to put it, especially with just the repetition of the song title. Got to keep your high hopes low. I think is just, it's just that. It's simple as that. It's a fun, quick little jam, and That's about all I have to say about that.
About all I have to say as well. Ready to move on?
I think we can move forward. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, the next track, as we've spoken so fondly of Ambrose a little bit in the solo section here, let's call Ambrose to center stage here on track 8 for the first time in the band's discography, actually. Ambrose takes the reins for track 8, Cutthroat Boogie.
Amby's time to shine on vocals, baby. Finally, this is the first time for him taking lead vocals on a studio track, and in fact, it is the first time anyone but Stu has sung lead vocals on a song. There's been some backup vocals, some gang vocals here and there, but this is the first time anyone else has taken the lead, and man, does he kill it. He comes out swinging on this thing, and this was really the point where they realized a lot of the other guys could sing and they could kind of show off their personality in some other songs, and I think that's what led to Float Along Fill Your Lungs having a lot more featured vocals from different band members. We even got Cookie singing on that one for the first time, and more stuff from Joey. So yeah, I think this is kind of the starting point of, you know what, it doesn't always have to be Stu. These other guys can sing and have their unique voices shown off for different songs, and it works great.
Absolutely, yeah. Ambrose brings so much confidence to his delivery on this song. You know, my first couple of thoughts when I listened back to the song after not touching this album for the longest time, this kind of backbeat, the groove, is like Jets' Are You Gonna Be My Girl meets Iggy Pop's Lust for Life. It's got that boom, 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 boom. It's like kind of a Motown influence a little bit, and also kind of a rockabilly feel at the same time. Maybe an amalgamation of both of those.
Yeah.
But it's another song that just has that retro feel and influence because of that bass line, that thudding beat. And I like to kind of verbalize the drum beat later on as it gains more prominence. There's that da-ba-doom, 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 ba-da-ba-doo as the instruments kind of drop out later in the song.
Yeah.
As fun as it is to sing along with Ambrose, a lot of vocals, by the way, a lot of lyrics.
Oh, yeah,
but
the most of any song.
The instrumentation powers it so well behind him, though.
Yeah. But this, you just mentioned, this is the most lyrics of any song. We mentioned that 12 Bar Bruise had the most so far out of the first half of the album, but this song is dense with words. There's a lot going on here, which we will get into in just a second. I just wanted to point out a couple more things sonically about it. First of all, this is the first Boogie song in the discography, preceding Bitter Boogie from Paper Mache, and then, of course, Plastic Boogie on Fishies later on. It's got more of that super dirty, blown-out guitar and just gnarly-ass harmonica. Not only is Ambrose singing all these lyrics, but he's still shredding on the harmonica in between every verse and part of the lyrics. He's just tearing it up, going crazy on the harmonica. This song's also unique because of the way the instruments are panned left to right in the song.
Yes.
It's especially noticeable. You can hear it in the car or something, but it's especially noticeable listening in headphones. Different instruments are panned hard left and right. The vocals and the harmonica and a little shaker that you hear, and one of the guitars are all on the right, and then the entirety of the drums, main lead guitar that's playing most of the time, are on the left. The bass guitar is, I feel like, mostly to the right, but you can hear it a little bit in the left channel as well, I feel like. I don't know if it's panned a little more center or if you're just hearing it because they recorded the songs, playing all together at once in a room and it's bleeding into the other microphones from the drums or whatever else. So there's just this interesting panning thing going on, kind of the Beatles effect that I think touched on before, like the early days of stereo recordings where they would purposefully like hard pan the instruments to different sides just because they could. It was a new technology, having stereo recordings like that. So yeah, this kind of does that. I don't know exactly why they chose to do that this way for this song. It's kind of interesting and unique, but at the same time, I don't know that I'm the biggest fan of it. Like, part of me wishes that a lot of it was a little more centered, and because it doesn't have as full of a sound when you listen in headphones, like the way that everything's kind of separated like that kind of breaks it up in an interesting way. But I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of that choice, but hey, it is what it is. It's still a great song.
I would mostly agree, but I was listening at work one day, and for safety purposes, I can only keep one headphone in at a time at work. And I remember listening to this one. I have my left ear in, and I'm like rocking out, like bobbing my head, and like 30 seconds in or 40 seconds in, whatever, I'm like, Ambrose?
Yeah, where are the vocals?
Where the hell is Ambrose? I hear almost everything else, and then I put my other headphone in just for 1 second, and then sure enough, I heard him. Like, okay, yeah, this is where the panning tricks come in.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit with you. I'm not the biggest fan of that. It does, I guess, in a quirky sense, kind of differentiate this song from others on the album.
Yeah.
And it's also another way in which this is a record where it's just like, hey, we're going to play around with some shit.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to throw some stuff at the wall, see what sticks.
We're going to record one with iPhones only. We're going to do one Western with my dad narrating.
We're going to record a bunch of them where you can't tell what's being sung at all.
Yeah.
But other than that, this one absolutely sticks for me. And for good reason. This song has been performed live 55 times. I haven't brought up any live stats yet other than the shutouts.
Yeah, well, most of the songs haven't been played since, around when they were newer, 2013, something like that. So this is one of the standout ones we mentioned earlier that you're most likely to hear live.
Yeah, they usually bust this one out for a small handful of performances each tour in recent years. But I should mention, 55 performances, that's the most of any song on this album.
Okay.
It's no surprise.
Yeah.
A banger.
So this song was, in fact, inspired by a song called Boogie by the band Carson, of which Amby's father, Broderick, was a member. At a show in 2022, he was quoted as saying he, quote, ripped off my dad with the song. And on the KGLW.net page for this track, there is a YouTube video of this band that Brod was in, Carson, performing the song Boogie at a music festival in 1973. Broderick Smith is on harmonica and vocals, just like his boy. His boy took right after his dad.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yep, he played harmonica and sung for the band. And oh my God, he looks so much like Ambrose on stage in this video. I listened to the whole thing. It was a really fun, old school boogie rock tune. But the video is awesome to watch because the camera most of the time is focused on Brod. And it took me a minute to figure out if it was him or not, because he's so much younger. This is back in the 70s, full head of hair and all that. And, but like when you see him, his face when he sings and his energy, like screaming into the mic and moving around and dancing weird and like blaring into the harmonica is so Ambrose. Like you could really see where he gets it from. Very much a like father, like son kind of thing going on here. I really recommend checking out that video. Again, it's on the history tab of the KGLW.net page for this song. Or you could just look up, Carson. I forget the name of the festival they were at, but, playing the song Boogie in 1973.
Yeah, I'm watching it live in real time right now, muted. Sunbury, 1973. And yeah. Holy shit, to a T. He's holding the microphone and the harmonica kind of simultaneously in his hand, like kind of cupped like Ambrose does. And he's like gyrating around and squatting and bending, doing all the different gyrations that Ambrose does.
It's so cool.
Just like his dad. Oh, he just did what looked like a box jump almost.
Yeah.
Like a squat jump.
Like he's just filled, he's got like the boogie demon inside of him, like the way Ambrose gets all crazy on stage sometimes. He can't help but move around and yeah, I love it. It was so cool to watch. So, Brod is the man. R.I.P. to the legend.
Oh man,
such a cool thing to watch. I'm glad there's footage of him doing stuff like that. As we mentioned, the song has by far the most lyrics of any of these 12 Bar Bruise tracks. So why don't we get into the lyrics and the backstory of what's going on in this track here?
Okay, well we'll start with the backstory here because it's entertaining, but certainly was scary for Ambrose at the time, as well as his friends surrounding him. Basically, when Ambrose was a teenager, I'll in fact quote it from the KGLW.net page. This comes from a YouTube live chat with Amby, and he says, "Cutthroat Boogie is about me getting my throat cut." Quite literally. "I was at a party when I was 16 and a friend broke a bottle and was being silly and grabbed me from behind and I leaned into the bottle. The bottle cut my neck and blood was pissing out everywhere. The doctor said I was an inch from my jugular. The friend ended up hanging out with gangs and I joined bands. The rest is history." You talk about a flashpoint in history to where two lives diverge in such different ways.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. So, obviously, such a good thing that Ambrose survived, and I think you can detect a little bit of that in the lyrics, just that if you'll pardon the pun, the connection back to the song, a lust for life, like he's grateful to be alive, to be able to sing this song. And he just sings it with such a zest and vigor as he's retelling this nonetheless horrid tale about how that cut bottle came within inches of taking his life. So the lyrics begin with, "As a child, I felt inclined to fold my ears in twine," which is more of an innocent childhood thing. And there's also a link on KGLW.net to a video, to an interview on video here, where Ambrose shows a literal trick where he takes the top of his ear and folds it like into his ear canal, and it looks like a little knot, like it's all knotted up and folded up, hence fold my ears in twine. And then he just says, "And I let it pop out like this," and it goes back.
Yeah.
It pops back out. It's such a gnarly, goofy little party trick, I guess. But he's like taking you back as like playing the role of narrator to his childhood. But then he says, "Never once was I confined. I picked and choosed about my ride. So buckle me in before we set sail ahead." And then a little weird twist, "For it smells like cabbage. Got way too stale like death." So I guess that's him talking about my life took a scary turn at one point, talking about this party incident.
Yeah.
And obviously, as the title would indicate, boogie song, but his throat was cut as he retells the tale, and he literally says, "So put it buried in your chest with the rest of your drunken regrets, inches from your jugular, as the room fills in front of you. It took them long enough for them to stop and suggest, hey, we better get him some help."
Yeah.
You think?
And I was going to say that I believe that's the second verse you're quoting there.
Yes.
That one is interesting because it sounds like it's being told from the perspective of the guy that accidentally cut him, where he's like, put this right in your chest or whatever, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, like,
and it's all
shit,
saying,
I didn't mean to.
Right,
Here,
it's all
do
saying
this.
you. But the way it's written, if you didn't know the backstory, almost sounds like threatening, like it was an intentional thing. Like, I'll cut you and watch the blood fill the room, and while everyone gathers around, it almost sounds like menacing. But obviously, it was just a bad case of a couple young guys drinking and getting up to some shit and causing trouble.
Mm-hmm. At first glance, when I looked over these lyrics before delving deep into the backstory of this song, the lyrical content of this reminded me of that weird guy you run into randomly in public, maybe at the grocery store or something, who's just like trauma dumping his early life onto you. Like, as a child, I used to fold my ears like this, and I would do all this weird shit, and I got in trouble at a party, and I cut my throat, almost died, and you're just like, okay, whatever, I'm trying to buy bananas here.
Okay,
dude.
can I get a receipt?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's really fascinating just that at such a young age, like Ambrose couldn't have been more than about 20 years old here. And just the fact that he was able to write so creatively and eloquently about such a traumatic event and make it into such a fun bop.
All right, moving right along here. We're down to 4 tracks left, and they're all pretty short and sweet ones. So let's keep moving right along. This is Bloody Ripper. Bloody Ripper.
Something we neglected to mention off the top of this episode is that I think part of what influenced our decision to do 12 Bar Bruise as our next album discussion was the fact that when we played that Name That Tune, or that Giz Hurdle here on the show, Joe got bad luck of the draw and got a couple of 12-bar songs. This was one of them, and he had so much trouble guessing, and it was just kind of a moment of, we haven't listened to that album in so long.
Yeah.
What fucking song is that?
Yeah.
We know it's from a certain early era. It has to be one of these songs, but which one is it? And so I think that spurred our decision.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, I was definitely wishing we had already done this episode before we did that game, but alas, it is what it is. I got this song, and then there was another one. Actually, the next track was one of the ones I had to guess as well. So, had a little trouble there, but now I familiarized myself quite a bit more, and I really like this song, Bloody Ripper. It's a nice mid-tempo track, a little slower in comparison to the last one, and frankly, most of the other ones with other crazy fast energy that exists in most of it. It's also a little bit of a poppier track as well. It still has that solid rough edge to it that the rest of the album has. This one, actually, interestingly enough, was released as a single for the album on April 3rd, 2012. This was the first single for the album that they put out, but it was along with the B-side of Sam Cherry's Last Shot, which is really interesting to include that as like a single to put out. But anywho, they did that. I mean, I think this song works as a decent single. It's pretty catchy, pretty poppy, like I said, and not too harsh or too fast or anything like that might scare people away more like some of the other ones. There's one moment I want to point out that's kind of interesting. At 1:36 seconds, which, believe it or not, is towards the end of the song. It's one of the pretty short ones. The song is sped up slightly, and the pitch increases along with it, and it actually kind of gives it this illusion of them doing a key change, because they just sort of bend the pitch and the speed up like by one note's worth. And so it sounds like there's a key change during the final like kind of chorus, I guess you'd call it the chorus of the song. I didn't write it down, but there was a quote, I guess it was from Stu, from that track by track kind of breakdown thing he was doing for this album, where he mentioned how they did that. And he said, I think it was him. It actually might have been one of the other guys. I didn't write it down. Maybe you could find it if you want to. But one of them said, it's like a key change, but just more confusing, I think is how he worded it. Yep. Yeah, it was Stu. Okay. So it was like, oh, we just sped it up, and it's like a key change, just more confusing, which
that's
I think
like
is
classic Giz.
Yeah.
Like a key change, but more confusing.
You know, it's like this one normal thing that people do in normal songs, but weirder and more confusing.
But we made it harder on ourselves because we thought it would be more interesting.
Yeah.
And it kind of is, honestly. Like, it's this unexpected twist that's borders on psychedelic, kind of.
Yeah.
Like almost like you took the shrooms mid-song and then all of a sudden,
go up a bit in pitch. Yeah. I guess maybe they didn't have the thought to do a key change in the actual recording, and then later on they're like, oh, let's add something a little different at the end here. I don't know. This song needs a little extra something. So they did that. This song was described by the publication Beat as half hate ballad, half love song, and I think that feels about right. You know, something about the sound of it and some of the lyrics sound like they could be interpreted as sort of a love song, kind of ballady in a way, but also some interesting lyrics that make it sound like aggressive as well, like they don't like the person that it's addressing. So yeah, it's got this weird kind of in-between thing. Actually, another thing just from that publication, from their article about the album, they had a little bit about a bunch of the different songs, but there was a quote right at the end of it that stood out to me, just summing up the entire album as, quote, delightfully idiotic and chock full of dickhead brilliance. 12-bar bruise melts the mind in the best way possible. So that was their final, summary of the entire album experience, and I think that's great. I love the phrase dickhead brilliance.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Perfect.
I'm going to wait for the right situation to steal that and use it in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, I want to circle back real quick to the fact that this was the first single. I think this song makes a lot of sense as a single. It does have that rough edge to it, that, rough around the edges feel, but nonetheless, the vocal delivery being as clean and dry as it is, it makes it a standout on this record. Kind of an oddball, actually. It almost makes it sound like not 12-bar-ish,
yeah.
if you want to put it that way. But I think it does help make it a little more accessible. So when I first found out that little factoid, this was a single, I'm like, okay, cleaner vocal production, as well as the fact that there's the hook, the melody, all I wanna do, sink my teeth in you, like that's easily sing-alongable, and it kind of does like hint back at the conflicting emotions, like what you said. Love and hate ballad, like it's this nasty sounding scary thing, but singing it in such a sweet way. All I want to do. It's funny. We didn't mention the title yet. Bloody Ripper is an Australian slang term meaning awesome or incredible. I think and I've never been to the area, so this is just kind of my like outsider's perspective. I believe the Boston or New England term wicked pissa it is similar. Like, okay. Oh, that's fucking awesome, man. I got my donkeys. That's wicked pissa. That's my bad Boston accent.
Yep, thank you.
I think it's something similar, but it was such a cool and evocative term that they used it for the name of an early tour of theirs. So there was the Blacktooth tour before this, if you remember, of course named after the Willoughby's Beach song, then the Bloody Ripper tour. I love their choices for those tour names.
Yeah, I think that's a great one because it's just like, oh yeah, this is some wicked, cool, awesome shit tour. Like,
yeah. I wonder if they'd continued that trend. I wonder what their selections would have been.
It's funny though, to an outside perspective, like being someone in the U.S. who doesn't use slang like bloody and ripper or that phrase together, it sounds like a violent song title. Like it puts imagery in my mind of like Jack the Ripper is what I think of is like a serial killer. You know, a bloody killer ripper, like that's what I think of. So it's really funny that like, no, it just means something that's awesome. That's like, hell yeah, exciting, awesome in Australian slang.
Yeah. Well, what it brought mind to me instantly was the cover art, the cover art of the album.
Yeah.
Like that lizard creature that looks very royal and like is wearing that chainmail or whatever, and has that giant yellow sword looking like he's piercing something,
like
stabbing something.
Stabbing through a like a scary teddy bear looking creature.
Yeah.
That actually I think was described by Stu as like a teddy bear looking thing.
Right.
We actually didn't talk too much about the album artwork at the top of the show, and I'm just realizing now we did mention that this was the first Jason Galea work to have on their album cover, but we didn't talk about the actual work itself. I believe Jason created this just on his own as just an art project, an art piece, and the band just loved it and wanted to use it as the album cover. They just felt like something about the visuals just fit along with the sound, and I couldn't agree more. All these sort of weird little critters like giant bugs and
giant birds,
vultures perhaps.
I swear that is the Oddments bird in the upper right-hand corner.
Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah, maybe.
It looks like it, doesn't it? Anyway, to me, this has always been easy to remember, despite my lack of much familiarity with some of these earlier albums. Earlier on in my time being a fan of this band, for some reason, I think I always remember Bloody Ripper and that title being on this album because of the artwork.
Yeah, it's always a title that stood out in my mind, and that's why, luckily, after a few wrong guesses of other songs during our Name That Tune game, Bloody Ripper was one of the song names I remembered because it had been so long since I listened to 12 Bar, and some of them just have weird, obscure titles that have nothing to do with the song, like Garage Lydiard and shit like that. So that was one that I remembered and was able to throw out there, and luckily that was the answer for one of them.
Overall, a kind of shorter, punchier song that, like I said, works well as a single. There is another music video with this one. It is actually the final music video associated with any of the songs on this album. And it's similar to the 9 video in that it's the band together in a room, kind of acting like they're performing for an audience, but I believe that it's just them in a room, not in a small club in actuality. But there's no fisheye lens on this one. The guys are kind of clustered together, facing the same direction, almost like they're posing for an album cover photo. Like, I think like 4 of them are in front, 3 of them are in the back. Like the guys in front are kind of knelt down. And but they're playing their instruments actively, pantomiming along with the song. And a couple of them intermittently put on and take off colorful luchador masks. It's kind of a goofy thing they have going on. And the guys, especially Stu, from my observations, seem weirdly low energy. And I wonder if, since we mentioned that there were 3 music videos they shot on the same day, I wonder if this was the last video they filmed that day, and the guys were just so tired that they're just like, let's just stand in one place, half-ass like pantomime playing our instruments with the song, and then Stu's just like, for a song that has some passion in the vocal delivery, he's just kind of lip-singing along, all I wanna do.
Yeah,
I've noticed, like a very deadpan
I've noticed that
expression.
in a few of these videos. Is he's got this plain deadpan face while he's just like kind of lazily singing along to the words. Like he's not like super energetic or moving around much or anything.
Maybe just a characteristic of earlier Stu before he built a little more stage presence. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right, let's move right along. I'm going to scroll on my phone here to the notes for the. I called my mom. What? Oh, wouldn't you know? That's the name of the next song. I called mom.
Oh, brother. Yeah, this is I Called Mom, a silly, punky, surfy rock song, seemingly about a guy taking a, quote, glob, which KGLW.net, fortunately, is there to the rescue, says likely refers to cannabis oil. And then, so this guy in the story, I guess, got too high, got anxious, got, all shaken up over it, and decided to call their mom to calm him down.
Yeah.
And that's the whole story of the lyrics. That's pretty much all there is to that. There is a lot to say about the song, though. It is really goofy and funny and fun in a lot of ways.
This song is actually based off a real-life experience, apparently, of Lucas, that he had at an early festival the band played during this time, or slightly before this time. I guess he was the one in question who took this funny glob, which, as he said, could have been cannabis oil, and then, just being kind of the young and maybe newer to the scene, like wanting to be adventurous, but then there's like that after the fact freak out. Oh no, what have I done?
Yeah. What
am
have
I
I
gonna
done?
get all fucked up and sick?
Right.
And what do you do when you're young? You call your mom, you call that trusted older sibling or trusted friend or whatever, and you're gonna be like, I fucked up. And that person's gonna be.
You need someone to like talk me down from this a little bit.
Exactly. And so I enjoyed the kind of ride that reading the backstory took me on, because I assumed, when I was less familiar with this album, I assumed that this was kind of a childish, like we both have siblings. We have experience here, like telling on mom if your sibling won't give you a turn with the Xbox.
Right.
Or I called mom. I'm going to tell mom. I'm going to tell
it's
on
my
you.
turn on the Xbox.
Yeah, I thought it was something like that, but in reality, it's what I just said. It's kind of like that freak out in the real world. You need someone to help talk you down and help calm you down.
Yeah, but touching on some more of the musical, instrumental qualities of the song, one big moment I want to point out, just after the 1 minute mark, Stu starts going, mama, 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 and then, you have what sounds like Ambrose in the background going, meow, 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 meow. And that reminds me so much of Surfin' Bird, like the ooma mow mow.
Yes, I was going to mention that. Glad you did.
Like this one, absolutely, they 100% go the surf rock jam route with the like meow 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 meow, and then you hear, I think it sounds like Joey come in going mama 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 mama.
I didn't pick that. Wow. In that surf progression.
Yeah, that classic surf progression.
I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, you could hear it. And I believe that is Joey doing that part in the background.
Okay, yeah. But I'm so glad you picked up on the ooh mow mow papa ooh mow mow. But before the days of Grateful Dead, before Fish, before Giz, bands at live performances would occasionally riff on like rockabilly tunes, or like some of those 50s pop tunes, or like early 50s rock stuff. And that was a song, Papa Mow Mow, or I think I got the title right.
Oh, okay. So Surfin' Bird is playing off of that song.
Yeah. And so there was like that was one example, I guess, of different bands during the 50s and even into the 60s. The Beach Boys would riff on that once in a while, even. Mike Love of the Beach Boys would work that into like what you might call jams of the time.
Sure.
But it was kind of this like very tactile, like mouthfeel for the singer. Papa mow mow, papa mow mow. It was just such a fun, like without having to sing and remember words, like you just get the rhythm down and you're nailing it.
Right.
And so I like that Ambrose does kind of a modern, sped up take on that. Again, just harkening back to decades past of rock history. I love that part so much.
After that chunk that I pointed out with all the different funny vocal things going on, there is a ripping harmonica solo once again, about 1 minute 12 seconds in. Already, it's been just over 1 minute, and so much has happened. You're just being like overstimulated with just all this wall of noise and all this shit going on. It's so funny and chaotic all at the same time. But the harmonica is ripping along, and in the background, you're still hearing the Joey part. Mama, 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 mama. It's pretty quiet, but you can hear it, especially in headphones. It just kind of becomes like one of the instruments just going along in the background. And the last thing I noticed that I wanted to point out is at the very end, you can hear a couple of the guys laughing, like they just finished like one of the vocal takes or whatever, and they're just cracking up, having a good time. Like, this song is so stupid. Like, they're just having a good time.
This song really is a good time had by all, and you get more of the call and response stuff. Also, I don't think we mentioned that yet. Closer to the beginning of the song, we alluded to the line, of course. I bought a funny glob, I put it in my gob, and there's the ooh,
yeah,
ooh, ooh, and the ooh. They're like going up and down with Stu singing the lead. Those harmonies and the call and responses are so cool, and it does lend to more of that surfy feel to it. I remember one day driving home from work in the last couple of weeks, I was starting to do my preliminary, listen back and research on the album. I remember the exact highway on-ramp I was about to get on when this song began playing, and I was bouncing in my seat waiting at a stoplight just because I was enjoying it so much.
I just need to move.
This is not just a jam along. This is a jam along, bob your head, and smile ear to ear. It's so lovely and fun and delightful. God. In both verses, which I guess you might as well call this the verse, I bought a funny glob, I put it in my gob. I noticed that Stu kind of puts that old British punk rocker emphasis on the word anxiety. I had anxiety. He swallows the T. Anxiety.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really simple song structure-wise, even though there are all the bells and whistles attached. Even though on its surface it's so rudimentary and early in the band's history, you could tell there was a lot of thought put into it and a lot of kind of arrangement.
Yeah, there's a lot
layers.
of structure, and arranged layers, like you said. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. There's a lot going on. Even though it's silly, it's a well-structured song.
I've alluded to a couple of songs prior to this one on the album that I wouldn't mind hearing live. I want to hear this one, man.
Yeah.
I really, really do. But by the way, they've only played this live 4 times. And the last time was 2013.
Wow.
Perth.
Yeah, see, this is one of the most of them. They haven't played them since smaller, local Australia shows in the year or two after this album coming out. So.
Yeah, so now they're starting to check off, boxes like Fishing for Fishies that have finally debuted. They're starting to whittle down some old favorites that you would hope they resurrect.
Yeah.
Who knows what the future holds.
All right, we're down to our last 2, which makes this next one the penultimate track. Bit of a more serious note on this one after such a goofy song, and we're going to get into that. This is Sea of Trees.
Okay, so a brief trigger warning here for those who are triggered by topics of self-harm and suicide. The lyrical matter in this song does deal with those very serious topics. This song centers on a forest near Mount Fuji in Japan, whose English translated name translates roughly to Sea of Trees. And in Japanese, this is my best pronunciation coming from an American, Aokigahara. Is the name of that forest.
Sounds close enough.
And and it's gained an unfortunate reputation of a place where many Japanese business people specifically have gone to take their own lives over the years. And so it's a place that's physically, geographically very beautiful. I've seen pictures. Joe, you've traveled to Japan before, and you're showing me a photo now of Mount Fuji in the distance from the train. Holy shit, that is gorgeous.
I didn't get to really get too close to it, but I took a trip to Japan about 2 years ago, and I took a bullet train from Tokyo to Osaka, which are 2 major cities, and in between, it was maybe a 2-hour train ride, something like that on the bullet train. And I had no idea we were even going to pass it. But on the train ride, at one point, there's a clearing, and there's just this town below, and Mount Fuji's just right there, towering above this town, and it's just beautiful, and I just could not believe what I was seeing. I was so excited that I got to even see it at all with my own eyes.
Yeah. We'll delve into the lyrical content in just a minute, but some of the background that went into this song and actually how it attaches to the history of the band's name at one point, actually. Just as King Gizzard was forming, Eric Moore went to a show where he talked about the Sea of Trees, and this actually ended up being the band's name for a couple of early shows and also seemed like a fitting title to this song. So it actually sounds like the band name came first.
Yeah.
And even though this was a very early song that they wrote and performed, that came a little bit later after the fact. So obviously this is King Gizzard very early on in their careers tackling a very serious subject matter. Of course, we talked earlier about Ambrose's near-death experience with accidentally getting slashed in the throat with a cut bottle. here, this is obviously a very dark subject matter, tough to talk about, but I think just from a writing and arrangement perspective, really admirable for the band to address such a serious subject matter in a way they're not claiming to be professionals or to have the answers for anything, but to the best of my reading and understanding of the lyrics, takes you through the kind of simulated mental process of perhaps a person who is having feelings of self-harm. Oh, hell, I'm feeling underwater. My head is sinking like a stone. And hell, I'm feeling kind of sick. I don't know what's the use in it. And when you're feeling suicidal, sometimes you just got to unfold. So if you're looking at this like strictly from, I guess, like a writing and artistic perspective, it's pretty, I think, respectful and not poking fun at the subject matter in any way, and making an intriguing song out of it, which is incredible for these guys who are so young at this point in history.
Yeah, really. We talked about how this album shows off a little bit of growth, a little bit of maturity in some aspects, just, as a band on this album compared to Willoughby's Beach, and I think this is the greatest example of it, them tackling a more serious subject matter and doing so tastefully and, not making light of anything or anything like that, and there's not even any specific talk about that place or anything like that. They don't talk about Japan or the unfortunate, events that have happened at the forest there. It's just a general song with sort of the theme of, someone coming from that perspective of feeling really down and having these harmful thoughts, these self-harm thoughts. And yeah, I think they handled it well. The lyrics, you just read all of them right there. That's the entire lyrical content. It's very short. It doesn't get super deep or super, far into specific examples of anything or anything like that. And I think it does a nice job of touching on the subject, but sounding a little hopeful when it comes to that aspect. Like that final line, when you're feeling suicidal, sometimes you've just got to unfold. I don't know exactly what he meant by unfold there. However, I can kind of liken this to a poker term, because folding is when you don't have a good hand that round and you just kind of give up and quit that round and you turn your cards in. I think that could kind of be an analogy for like giving up.
Sure.
In the most, deepest and darkest of ways in this case. So him saying unfold there, to me, rings as the opposite of like opening up and by whatever means necessary. He doesn't get really specific, but it's like sometimes you've got to unfold, you've got to ungive up, and push through to the other side. There's better things on the other side kind of way. And I think it can be interpreted in different ways, but that's what it means to me.
Yeah, and it's obviously good that they don't take the angle of, well, have you just tried not being anxious, or have you just tried not feeling suicidal?
Yeah, like just stop.
Yeah. But instead, they go more a route that they would address later on. In fact, almost a decade later on Butterfly 3000 with Interior People, Joey's lyric, pay someone to taste, to smell, and punch through the drywall inside my skull. It's like this, a triumphant, like resilient, like there is a way out.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to touch really quickly on a lighter note here. I found an old tweet back when X was still Twitter, back in the good old days.
The good old days.
As part of an online AMA, the band answered the question, why the band name? And I think we've talked about other like similar Q&As on the show before, but this one in particular is different. Stu says, well, I'm going to answer it here and hope it sticks. King Giz was formed so informally that for a long time there was no name at all. We would get together and hang, jam, chat about life, stay up late, all the fun stuff. Once we started getting some gigs, we performed under various names before settling on the absurd and sometimes annoying one that we have now. I don't remember the exact origins, but I think it involved a certain state of inebriation and a few laughs. It just sounded funny anyway. For some reason, the name stuck, and now the joke is on us. And then below that, there's actually a follow-up question by user I Am a Strange Loop, who says, now I want to hear the former name so bad. And then the King Gizzard account replies, Sea of Trees, Native Plant, Happy Magic Band. I would have loved that.
Oh my God, I never heard all of these.
Some others that turned out were already band names, and some others that I forget.
Wow.
So yeah, Happy Magic Band. That was kind of news to me.
Oh God.
And also on a more broad stroke kind of note here, this was perhaps the earliest, or maybe just one of the earliest cases of the band pairing super dark subject matter with seemingly upbeat sounding instrumentation.
Yeah.
And this isn't maybe the most sunny and positive sounding instrumentation on the album, but it's definitely upbeat, and you wouldn't guess that it's about the subject matter it is without actually reading the lyrics or listening to the lyrics. Something in the way that repeated riff, which kind of goes on and on throughout the song, just that powerful riff, which is really paired with the harmonica on most iterations. The harmonica is just mirroring it.
Yeah.
It has this soaring quality to it. I'm imagining in my mind almost like flying a drone and getting that drone footage over the forest near Mount Fuji, something like that. So it's really an interesting case of early on the band taking a very adventurous and potentially risky leap, but I think one that they nailed.
Yeah, really. I think the simple melody, the main riff, actually really has a lot of emotion to it. It sounds like it does, and like I said earlier, I think it sounds hopeful. It sounds positive and hopeful, like overcoming something and breaking free, and like you said, flying through the air through a beautiful place like that, and overcoming a challenge in a dark place like that. So I really do get a hopeful, positive feeling from it overall. Before we finish up talking about this song, there were just two little moments that stood out to me that I wanted to point out. 2 minutes, 21 seconds. The harmonica really starts to go crazy. We get a nice, blown out, distorted harmonica solo section once again, like we've gotten on so many of these tracks. And then at 2 minutes, 39 seconds, as the song starts to get closer to its end, it lightens up a bit for a gentler finish. It's just one of the guitars that's a little cleaner sounding, just playing that main riff, and the harmonica's playing a lot softer, and it's just kind of this gentle, nicer, calmer finish, like the calm after the storm, where like everything's worked out, everything's gonna be okay kind of feeling, and I really like that. With how kind of serious and emotional and big the song is in a lot of ways, it really feels like it would have made a great closer. But no, we got one more silly ass song to cap things off. This track really is bookended by two goofy as fuck songs, maybe the two goofiest on the album.
Yeah, and we'll just cut to the chase. It's called Footy Footy.
Okay, so Footy Footy is this super fast, goofy ass, in unintentional rhyme there, garage rock jam about Aussie football. It is, in fact, the shortest track on the album at just 2 minutes on the dot, and it's got all kinds of silliness going on. It's got Joey listing the names of 21 players of the sport, mostly from the 90s that Joey watched on TV growing up, the teams and some of the standout players that he remembers, and also lots of Australian football slang words that are way outside of our American football brains, but we did a little research and picked up on some of those that we could run through in a minute here.
Real quick, aside from Joey's name dropping all these players, which this is like bro times, like 101 here. Yeah. Like, you ever get with your bros and you just throw out random athletes' names from the 90s that you grew up watching? That's like classic, and it's definitely, I think, poking fun at that type of like sports fan bro that will just get over sitting with a light beer and is like, hey, remember this guy from 94? Whatever. It's me. I am bro. I do it with baseball.
I am bro.
I am bro. But in addition, you get some fun vocal deliveries from Stu, and I think maybe another couple of the guys. Maybe Joey's in here also, maybe Ambrose, but the footy, all I want to do is footy, all I want to kick is, and then footy, they catch the ball, kick, play on, another Aussie football term there. But as we go deeper into the song, you mentioned some of the terms that they throw out. After repetition of footy, a handful of times, Joey goes into this fun part, like spoken word portion of the song where he's like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And he talks about all these experiences he's supposedly going to have as a fan. I love to go down to Waverley Park, which I looked up, old Aussie football stadium located in suburban Melbourne. The last team that played there played in 1994.
Okay.
Apparently the pitch, like the field area still exists, but there's development around it now. No longer an operating stadium. I'm going to sit on the wing, just like on the side of the field, like where he takes his seat. I'm going to eat a pie. Another one of those cultural differences. They don't do hot dogs over there, I don't think. They'll have like a meat pie or like a shepherd's pie or something.
Oh, interesting.
Probably, I would assume so at least.
Something like that?
I'll
okay.
That's like... I think in England they do stuff similarly at soccer games. I'm going to buy a footy record for $1.50. At first, I thought that was like a vinyl record, like maybe with highlights on it. But no, it's what we would call in the States a program.
Yeah.
With like interviews with players and stats and feature stories.
Yeah, that's what I was able to determine as well.
Yeah, and then I'm going to have a full-strength beer, you girl. Like I'm going to drink one of those manly 10% ABV IPAs.
Yeah.
I say that in a poking fun way, but I love those. I'm gonna take a specky. You grabbed onto this one at first, and you're like, I noticed this one, but I didn't really take the time to look it up.
Yeah, what the hell?
A specky, which is more properly referred to as a spectacular mark. It's basically a play in Aussie rules football that involves a player jumping on the back of another player to make a catch. So I guess players can use their opponents as a ladder, kind of.
Yeah, either up their back or up their shoulders.
Mm-hmm. And that is a legal play. So that's taking a specky. And then I'm going to kick a banana, which is like a banana kick, like making the ball curve, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to eat a banana. Can't get cramps, right? When you're playing footy.
Yeah.
I'm going to love every second of it. I hate what this game has become. I like that twist at the end. It's just like, oh, I love this game, but these players nowadays, the game isn't played the right way anymore. and those fans exist with every sport, man. But again, he's poking fun at a type and a behavior, all in such a lighthearted, goofy way. This is such a fun song. I know I just kind of did a deep dive on the lyrics, taking it solo there, but I think there's a little bit more to talk about, like in terms of the little musical value that is there, right?
Yeah. I actually have one more slang one here that you didn't have written down. There's the phrase crumb the ruck.
Oh, yeah.
Which was interesting. So I was able to find that the term crumb can refer to a loose ball that has fallen to the ground, that is dropped, like what we would call a fumble, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And a ruck is a position in Australian rules football. Actually, I don't know a lot about the game, forgive me, but it seems to be the player that, like, at the start, they have one player from each team like jump up to grab the ball or something first to get possession of it, and those players are the rucks, I think. Like almost like in basketball how you have a tip-off. I think there's like a similar thing to that in the beginning, the way that they started out, but the players that take that position are the ruck.
Okay, I actually did watch a little beginner's guide type video, and I found that there is indeed something similar to a tip-off. The official takes the ball, bounces it hard on the ground in the center circle, and as the ball bounces high into the air, that's when I guess the rucks
are the ones that jump up and go after
and
it,
fight for possession.
Okay. See, I didn't actually watch any video of it or anything, so I'm like trying to describe it, but I also really don't fully understand what I'm even talking about. But that phrase "crumb the ruck" is weird because crumb sounds like it's being used as a verb, like as if to crumb is to like take someone out or like tackle or whatever. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean the full line of the lyric is footy, they'll crumb the ruck and run handball.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. There's a lot of slang and weird stuff going on here. I tried to make the most sense of it as I could, so I don't know.
The term handball was explained also in that intro video I watched. Forgive me, I've forgotten the specifics of it, but it is a fundamental part of the game.
Okay.
So one that makes sense they would touch on.
Yeah. Anywho, I think that's probably enough. That's enough of this. Us trying to, two American guys trying to describe all this Aussie stuff that we don't fully understand.
Yeah. But I would, and I told you off mic before here, Joe, that I was tempted to, in honor of Super Bowl champions, baby, Seattle Seahawks.
Yep.
As I'm wearing my Super Bowl champs shirt today. I was tempted at one point to kind of make a goofy like spin-off version or cover version, except listing all like different Seahawks players, either from franchise history or from the Super Bowl championship team this year. Zach Charbonnet, Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker III, Michael Dixon, who by the way is an Australian, the Seahawks punter.
Oh,
yep, he's from Sydney.
There's a little connection.
Yep, there's a connection indeed. But yeah, I would love, just as a goof one day, what if one American or some North American band out there one day makes like a American football or maybe a baseball equivalent to this or something adjacent? Could be fun. Could be funny. Whatever.
Yeah.
All in all, this is just a goofy, lighthearted song to bring the album to a close after kind of some emotional ups and downs here on the last few tracks of the album. This, by the way, was a co-writing venture between Stu and Joey at a time where Stu was doing most of the writing himself. And it is the shortest track on the album at, as you alluded to earlier, 2 minutes exactly. It also had the honor of being featured in the video game AFL Live 2.
Oh, no
from
way.
the year 2013. So when this track was still pretty fresh, this made its way into the soundtrack of an Aussie football video game, which I didn't know was a thing, but that's super cool.
I'm gonna have to pick that up and play it, and then maybe it'll help me understand how the game works.
We can learn
and,
then.
Get the jam out when it comes on. I just the last couple things I wanted to touch on about the song before we wrap up our track by track section here. In an interview, Eric was talking about how the way they sort of came up with a lot of this, they wrote the song first, and then they were messing around, I guess, in the studio, and just Joey was screwing around and listing off a bunch of names of his favorite players. Like, he was just talking and kind of just like rambling and saying all this stuff along to the song, and the guys just loved it, and they were like, that's so funny, we gotta like make that part of the song, and it wasn't originally going to be in there, so that's how it got included. And finally, I have a funny quote from Stu here. So during that track rundown from Mess and Noise that we've referenced a few times, Stu talked about how they loved footy, and so the song was kind of serious in a way, but also kind of not, and completed his description of it with the quote, "This song is the shittiest song on the album, so we put it at the end." So that answers my question as to why Sea of Trees wasn't the closer, because I thought that'd make a great closer, but fair enough, he just thinks this is the shittiest song, so we just shoved it on at the end.
Oh my god, you gotta love these guys.
I just love it. I love it. But yeah, I think that wraps up our track-by-track discussion here. We spent a lot more time than I anticipated talking about these short songs, but what do you know? There was actually a lot to say here, and I shouldn't be surprised at this point, because we always go way longer than I expect.
Always.
Our first ever album discussion was like an hour or less, and now most of them are closer to 2 hours, so... Yep, anyway, here we are. Why don't you say we do our usual and name our top 3 and least favorite song off the album? You want to do yours first?
Yeah, I'll do mine first, and I will say that the first 2 were slam dunks, and the last one was difficult. So, in the order they appear on the album, Cutthroat Boogie, Uh-Oh, I Call Mum, and Sea of Trees.
No.
The latter being the one that was close between Sea of Trees, I think, High Hopes Low, and I think I even had 9 in the mix at one point, believe it or not. Yeah. So those are the 3 that I arrived at. How about you?
All right. Only one of them line up for the 2 of us.
Oh.
This was hard for me because a lot of the songs just sort of hit the same wavelength and I enjoy pretty equally. I ended up going with Muckraker, Cutthroat Boogie, and Sea of Trees. So you didn't you had Cutthroat Boogie as well. So we had 2 out of 3. Okay. So yeah, Muckraker was the first one I went with. It was tough. That one I was debating between that and a lot of other songs, but Cutthroat Boogie and Sea of Trees are 2 big standouts that I just had to include on my list. So we lined up there.
Not I Called Mum, huh?
No. I mean, I love it. It's funny, but I don't know. It's hard. If I think about it too much, you're gonna make me want to change my mind, and I can't think about it too much.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But that one gets bonus points for being funny. I did write down a couple honorable mentions actually, and for whatever reason that wasn't one of them. I don't know why I didn't think to write that one down, but I wrote down a couple honorable mentions just because it was such a close call for me. I put 9 in there just because I love that counting part, especially 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the sick beat at the top of High Hopes Low, shout out to that, and then I threw Bloody Ripper as an honorable mention as well for being really catchy and kind of fun and nicer and poppier sounding. That made it stand out as well. As for least favorite, I could go ahead and name mine first. This probably will not be a surprise at all. I was kind of shitting on this song quite a bit, but unfortunately I got to go with the title track, 12 Bar Bruise, sorry. I just really can't stand the iPhone audio quality like I was saying earlier. It is noticeably rougher than the other already kind of rough songs on the album, and so I have to put that one down as my least favorite. How about you?
Yeah, until very recently, I actually had Elbow as my least favorite, but 12 Bar Bruise is my least favorite as well.
Yeah, upon further
after further review.
Further review.
It just, that production is so rough. So just the same rationale behind your choice for that one. And I think you do have to remember that 2012, I believe the first model of the iPhone had just come out like 5 years prior, something like that, 2007. But they didn't even, maybe it didn't even exist at this point. They didn't even use like actual recording, like software apps or whatever on the phone. They used the voice
literally just
memo
the built-in voice memo app for literally just recording little voice recordings to yourself. Yeah,
but I get it at the same time, a fun exercise nonetheless. It's like, ooh, new technology. Let's see what it can do.
True.
God, I don't know if they knew the horrors that laid around the corner.
But I will say I have heard of artists using that voice memo feature a lot for jotting down just like ideas for songs.
Yeah.
Like if they're out and about somewhere away from home, away from their studio, and like a melody pops into their head or a lyric, a song idea, like, they'll just quick record some guitar or like acoustic guitar, or they'll just sing or hum a melody into it. And it's great for that because it's it's an audible note of like a song idea. Great. Okay.
Right.
But the idea of using that as your studio is crazy.
I'm laughing because I know that musicians used to like call their home and leave a voicemail at their home phone.
That's even a predecessor similar idea.
Yeah, it's a means to an end. It's a more modern, like definitely handier method of doing that now if you're a musician.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever works for you.
All right, we've already been going for a long time, so we're gonna do a real quick most of what we like.
Most of what we like.
And just to reiterate, for those new to the show, most of what we like is the segment we do sometimes, but not always, here near the end of the show, where we celebrate any non-Giz music, any other entertainment like movies, shows, books, games, whatever we've been digging lately. Joe, I'll let you take it first. What have you been into lately?
Okay, sure. So a band I've referenced before, they were in my top artists for my my streaming wrap-up at the end of this past year. Lamb of God, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, heavy metal band, modern metal band. They just put out a new album this past Friday as we're recording this, Friday the 13th of March, and it is called Into Oblivion. It's very good. I actually went to a cool record release listening kind of event at my favorite local record store. They did a cool thing I saw them post about online, or they had a raffle giveaway for like a copy of the album and like a signed poster or something that I guess was sent to them, which was really cool. I did not win. I was 2 digits off, two digits, like 2 numbers away, like
sequentially,
like 2 people in front of me that were there first got it. But yeah,
man.
But anyway, it was fun just kind of wandering the shop while listening to the album for the first time. It is great. Highly recommend if you're into heavy stuff. And also I want to give a shout out to one of my favorite podcasts, the Dissect podcast, which was a big inspiration for our creation of this show because that guy does a full season, and every season is one album, and every episode of the podcast that comes out weekly focuses on one song from that album, and he goes in deep, usually for 40 minutes to an hour, breaking down songs. His most recent season just started this past week, and it is on Daft Punk, and I am very excited because they are one of my favorite artists of all time. Yeah. I've had a huge impact on me since I first heard them when I was like 10 years old or even younger. And the new season, instead of focusing on one of their albums, he's actually focusing on their entire discography and, going to be kind of talking about full albums and different things related to that band or duo, whatever you want to call them, in each episode. So the first episode just came out, and in that one, it just talked about their first couple singles and sort of their beginnings as a duo and their background and where they came from and sort of their very first successes that they had leading up to their first full-length album. Okay. Highly recommend. Again, that's the Dissect podcast. Check them out. It is fantastic. So that's it for me. Spencer, you want to go ahead and touch on your most of what we like?
Yeah, I'll check that out definitely soon. I am obviously a fellow fan of Cole Kushner and Dissect, so that's worth a look. So I have 2 things today, and the first of which, I've been hanging on to this one for a long time, so I'm excited to share it. The Denver, Colorado-based band Blood Incantation, who I believe had some significant overlap with the Giz fan base. I believe they're actually performing at Field of Vision as one of the other bands.
Yeah, I think they are.
They have a album called Time Wave Zero, released in 2022. And it's entirely ambient. They're typically a death metal band, subgenre, which I'm not really into much. But this is their 3rd album, which follows like a couple of kind of more traditional like death metal type vibes. This one is just totally ambient with like, what is it? 8 different tracks, all named after Venusian moons, Io and Ea, the Galilean moons of Jupiter.
Okay. I think you sent me this album a little while back. I remember. It sounds very familiar. I think I did kind of put it on at work one day and listen to it. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but a lot of the tracks are extended. Like there are a couple of 7+ minute long tracks, and they're like the perfect backdrop for being in a planetarium, like dark, dimmed lights and the mystique of the planets and outer space and everything. And there's seriously some like bone-chilling, sounds and vibes on this album. It's so cool, and it has become actually my favorite like music to focus to. Kind of, I've taken inventory at work a couple of times with it on when I don't want lyrics or anything crazy, but it's something. Yeah. And other times, just like when I want to shut out the world and just vibe in a quiet space. It is a perfect album for that. The tracks are divided into kind of 2 categories. The first one named after the moon Io. First movement, second movement, third movement, fourth movement is all they're called. Yeah. And then the second half of the album is Ea, the moon Ea, and it also has first, second, third, fourth movements. So not traditional song titles per se, but really cool. Recommend checking it out if you like ambient stuff or want something for similar life situations. And then the second thing I'd like to share today is the recently dropped Muse single, Be With You. It was a nice unexpected birthday present yesterday. So they dropped it, and Muse are a band that in recent years I've kind of gone up and down on. A lot of their classic work I'm a huge fan of. More recently, kind of hit or miss in my opinion. But they dropped this single yesterday. It starts off with this beautiful pipe organ and Matt Bellamy singing a beautiful melody. It's like a gorgeous ballad to start off, and then it moves into like this like hybrid rock and electronic track after the pipe organ opening. It just sweeps you away, man. It's definite single material, but it bangs nonetheless. And they also announced their album that it's going to be released on, coming on June the 19th. The album is entitled The Wow Signal. And I'm really excited for that. So that's going to be one of my musical summer highlights. So those are my 2 things I'm bringing to the table today.
All right, awesome. Nice stuff. We got a little variety there for you to check out if any of that sounds up your alley. As I said earlier, we are hoping to do a better job of sticking with our regular bi-weekly release schedule, but we haven't quite discussed what we're doing next time on the show, so I don't really have any sort of announcement as to what's next. We have been in the talks with a couple people about potential interview collaboration episodes that we might have some other people on, which would be really fun. And as I said earlier, we have a couple albums left in the discography to cover, so it could be one of them. Could be something weird and different, though, so I don't know. Stay tuned. Follow us on all the socials if you don't already. We're available on Facebook, X, Bluesky, and Instagram. I'd say our Instagram's the most active because we post on the stories there quite a bit, so those are posts that you won't see in other places, other feeds. But follow us on whatever platforms you use, and if you ever want to reach out about anything Giz-related at all, hit us up on either DMs through any of those pages or reach us by email, potagoninfinity@gmail.com.
As always, thank you for listening to Potagon Infinity, and thank you for keeping it weird and doing your part to spread the good word of the Giz. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you in the next episode. Later, Gators.
Woo!
Sam Cherry's last...
Sam Cherry's, what?
Sam Cherry's last shot.
Nailed it.
Sam Cherry's.
That's going to be the cold close there. Ending with you going, Sam Cherry's.